This episode of the Major Issues Podcast is brought to you by ComicBook Clique at tpublic.com. Take a selfie rocking one of our shirts from TeePublic and use the hashtag CBCWorthy for a chance to win 2 free tickets to see Captain Marvel in theaters March 8th. Just click the Shop Comic Book Clique link in our show notes to make a purchase, or follow us on Facebook for more information. Remember, you are worthy. Hello everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you could only be here for one reason, and it's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you by Comic Book Clique. As you know, I'm never alone. Sir, please introduce yourself.
We are Sex Bums, and I am excited for today. I am Dan the Comic Book Man, but today I am both Dan the Comic Book and Movie Man, because we have covering both the comic book and the movie for Scott Pilgrim. And
this is a momentous occasion, mostly because we're in our 60s when it comes to the episodes now. You know, we've been doing this for over a year, and I think that this is one of the first films you wanted to cover. This is one of the first.
Oh, this was why I wanted to start this podcast, because I wanted to be able to talk about Scott Pilgrim, not just the movie, but the graphic novel.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're going to be tackling here today. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, a film directed by Edgar Wright, I guess adapted from the comic by Brian Lee O'Malley, and this film hits United States screens in August 13th of 2010. Did you see this film on screen?
Saw this in theaters, yes.
Oh, this must have blown your mind, huh?
Oh, what's crazy is I have a huge love for Michael Cera, one of my favorite actors, very relatable to me. I think he's great in everything he does. Uh-huh. And when looking to see if I watched all of his movies, I was on IMDb just going through his entire filmography, and one of these up-and-coming movies said Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. And I clicked on it, and I watched 2 trailers. I watched the international trailer and the regular trailer, the domestic trailer, and I was sold instantly. Just from the editing style to the music that they had in the trailer itself, it was just amazing. I told everybody we have to see this movie, and I did. I watched it in theaters, and this is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. This will always be in that's like talking about top 5. This movie always makes the cut, because I think it's not only Michael Cera's best performance, but this is probably one of the 2 of best Edgar Wright movies.
Yeah,
like if I wanted to say his best movie before watching Scott Pilgrim, it was always Shaun of the Dead. Yeah,
that's a lot of people's favorite Edgar Wright movie, and a lot of people are fans of the Cornetto trilogy of films that he made with the same characters in it, which would be it's Shaun of the Dead, it's At World's End,
and Hot Fuzz.
Is it The World's End? Sorry.
The World's End. Hot Fuzz was the second one.
Yeah,
and they were all just making fun of different. He was just doing a style to different movie genres.
Yeah, Edgar Wright's a very stylistic. I am just mumbling everything today. Yeah, he's a very stylistic director, and this film is adapted from a comic that's very stylistic in its own right. Although it's a comic book, it actually takes a lot more from manga than it does anything else. You see a lot more of the way they shoot their action in the book, the way certain people express themselves, and the original Scott Pilgrim books were in black and white, as manga is for the most part.
I didn't start reading the color editions until late in the game, but I kind of enjoyed the whole black and white thing about it.
Yeah, I can't remember. They say when it's black and white though that it's quite hard to distinguish characters, which I can kind of get.
No, yeah. Well, when you read the color edition, a lot of things that like you wouldn't originally notice become more open in the front.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the buildings in the background.
Yeah.
Become
definitely
more like, oh, this is, you notice it in the movie. Like after one of the, I think it was the Roxy Richer fight. No, it was after the Todd fight when they're in that place Pizza.
Yeah.
In the background, you see Honest Ed's.
All right, but that it holds a bigger place in the comics.
That was one of the fights. That was the first fight scene between Todd and Scott in the comics. Was at the Honest Ed Superstore.
Oh, well, what's funny is that we've done older movies on this podcast, but this movie sits at a very important place in like where comic book movies
Yeah, this was during the time of the MCU. This was like 2 years
right in the beginning of the MCU.
2 years into the MCU, so you only had maybe both the Iron Mans and the Captain America.
Yeah, I think Iron Man 2 had come out already. I think Captain America comes out in 2011 with Thor.
Okay, so then this was so you only had Hulk and the first 2 Iron Man movies.
Yes.
So this is when
there something in between there? No.
No. It was
you're right.
It was Iron Man, Hulk, and then Iron Man 2.
Definitely. Yeah. So people were starting to get their footing, starting to get a little bit more familiar with not only comic book characters but comic books, and just the overall culture shifting. YouTube is getting big. Video game playthroughs are becoming humongous. Just the ability to use nostalgia to go back and look at old games, old movies.
And that's what this movie did. It really hit a lot of sweet spots for SNES fans.
Yeah.
It had a lot of Legend of Zelda songs. He plays Final Fantasy in one.
That's a funny scene as well. He's like, yeah, by the way, I learned the bass line for Final Fantasy 7, I think he says. But yeah, this film is made for the young adult. This film in many ways tries to act as if, what would life be like? And a lot of the books are that. I tried to read all the comics that the film was based on so faithfully, but there are literally 6 volumes, not 6 issues, 6 volumes, each volume having over 150 pages.
Yeah, and I think the 6th book was written for the movie. It was written for the movie. The 6th book was adapted from the movie instead of the movie being adapted from the 6th book.
Yeah, the 6th volume comes out in 2010. So it literally used some of the film's elements to complete its story.
Which I think that's perfect. Like when you talk about comic book adaptations, most comic book movies already have the source material that it's going off of. But for a comic book to still be in its series and be based off of the movie instead of the movie being based off it is just a weird turn of events that I kind of like.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And another thing is, Watchmen's been converted from comic book to film. Watchmen was 12 issues. Other stuff like Civil War, same thing. This is 6 volumes. This is ambitious just on the strength of the amount of content that had to get into this film for it to make sense. And while rewatching it, I rewatched it yesterday after not watching it for a couple of years, I realized how quickly the film moves. It almost never stops moving. It never stops being funny or action oriented or just the visual effects and all that stuff.
Of course, there is no pause where even you think there's a pause where when Wallace comes home drunk.
Yeah.
And you think, all right, it's probably going to do a fade to black and then cut to the next thing. No, it's just you hear another Zelda song and it goes from night to day and Scott's already at the computer.
Yeah.
So like there is no pause in the time frame.
And the thing is, maybe I'm just misremembering, but I feel like Michael Cera's usually in slower films or just
you're not wrong. He is in movies that it's like it takes time to either like his character or get to know his character.
This is post Juno. This is post Superbad.
Youth of Revolt, Superbad, Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Yeah.
Which that's the movie that made me like start liking Michael Cera. Like I liked him in Superbad in year 1.
Yeah, because he is divisive. I dig the guy. But I do think that there's a lot of people out there who can't get into his like awkward.
He's quirky. It's very like trying to watch like your little brother like act.
Right.
Like it's weird. But then you get this movie where he's fighting. Like he has choreographed scenes and he looks like good.
Yeah.
He looks like the comics it made him look Scott Pilgrim was more of like
I'd say like a
No, he wasn't really somebody you like in the comics.
No, but I mean, you could argue that Scott Pilgrim in the film is probably not somebody you would like either, depending.
No, definitely not. It's like he's just so aloof with everything he does.
And that's another thing. I think, this film has a lot going for it, but I do think that as I watch it now, older, I see it from a different perspective. What Scott feels in the beginning of the film and throughout the film for the most part about like life happening to him, like these things just keep happening to me. How do these things keep? And he almost never takes control until the end when he decides that he's going to do something against Gideon and stuff.
And earns the power of self-respect.
Yeah, but I feel like as an adult now, as a grown man. I turned 30 this year. Dan.
Oh my God! I turned 20.
All my dreams are gone. That's it. It's all. I'm gonna go work in a factory, and that's just what I'm gonna do. No shade against anybody who works in factories, by the way. But yeah, I feel like as an adult, there's a lot that is wrong with Scott's life that is Scott's actual fault. And
that's why the comics makes him. It shows that he's a jobless loser.
And if not his actual fault, he still has the power to change it. Him and Wallace live in a room where he owns none of the stuff. Is that his fault or is that Wallace's fault? That's definitely not Wallace's fault.
Can't blame the guy for owning things.
One bed they have in the comic and in the film.
Bed.
There's one bed. He lives across the street from his
parents' old house.
His parents' old house where he grew up. He doesn't seem ready to move and make big changes.
And that's why I love the fifth and sixth, especially the sixth one. In the sixth
volume.
In the sixth volume, he's already done with him and Ramona broken up, just like in the movie. But it's for like a long while. Like the last time you read volume 5 was like a year before volume 6.
Yeah.
So like for this whole year, you're like, what's gonna happen to Scott's life? What's gonna happen to Ramona? And then when you get it to the sixth volume, he's back living with his parents.
Oh my gosh! Come on, Scott. So that he really has to get chicken out of the nest and figure out who he wants to be.
It takes everybody to just tell him, like, listen, you have to start doing something. Like you can't just sit here. There's a panel where he's like laying on his couch playing PlayStation Vita.
Oh, that's pretty updated. Yeah, that makes sense.
No, yeah, it was it was funny. Like you just see him play. It has the whole design of the PlayStation Vita, but he's very lazy in the comic. And in the movie, it doesn't portray him as lazy. It just portrays him as like clueless, but like. It's your fault you're clueless.
But you know what it is? He's not proactive with anything. He doesn't see what he should do and then go does it. As a matter of fact, a lot of times in this film, Wallace is the person who tells him what he needs to do.
Oh, yeah.
Wallace is like, you need to go get Ramona if you love her. Wallace is like, you need to go break up with Knives or else I'm going to do something about it.
Sweet angel.
Wallace goes, you need to go fight, what's his face? Gideon and stuff. And we'll get into all those characters in a bit. But yeah, I feel like in the beginning he's just not proactive. Things are happening around him, and he just thinks it sucks. And he says a lot of that. He says that a lot in the book.
This sucks.
And so when we first meet him, he is healing from a breakup, a pretty painful breakup, and he's choosing
pretty healed.
To heal. Well, he's choosing to heal. I don't think he's healed because Ramona remarks his hair, and that sends him on a
because the last time he cut his hair was during his big breakup.
Yeah, it was right before his big breakup, and he thinks that the hair is why she broke up with him.
That's what it was in the comics. Yeah, in the comics it showed like maybe she broke up with me because my hair looked bad.
Right, and so he just a mention of something in the previous relationship just sends him spiraling down.
Puts his hat on.
Yeah, so I don't know how repaired, how much he rebounded off of Envy, who we meet later on. But yeah, he's in a happy relationship now with a high schooler named Knives.
Knives Chow?
Yeah, Knives
She's
Chow.
Chinese.
She's Chinese. No, what got me... There's a lot of very human conversation in this, and in a way that doesn't feel like it's written for a movie. And one of the parts that got me where I was just like, they did not just go through that whole thing in conversation. But she's like, wait, she's Chinese? And he's like, yeah. He's like, Catholic school. She's like, with the uniform and everything? And
he's like, yeah, it's just nice.
And she's like, oh my God. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of a trope. That's kind of what you see in anime, in manga. You know, everyone goes to school. They all got uniforms.
Schoolgirl with the uniform and everything.
Yeah, and so he literally snatched a girl from the comic books. You know what I'm saying? He literally snatched a girl from the manga. And how do you feel about that? Did that make you feel uncomfortable at all after rewatching it, reading the books? How do you feel about the distance in age between Knives and Scott? And does that make Scott a user? In the book, Kim asks him pretty much like, "Are you being a user?"
Oh no! In the book, he is actually a heartbreaker. In the book, it is shown, and it's only showed in subtle conversations with Julie. Where she's like, that time you broke up with Kim, that time with this, that time with whatever her name was. He's like, that wasn't what it looks like.
Holly,
yeah. In the comics, he really is a Ramona, and they make it known that when Ramona was talking about herself, and I think it was book 2, and Wallace and Knives were overhearing it. Yes, because it was Scott and what's his face, Lucas Lee were talking about Ramona. And Lucas Lee was telling Scott, Ramona's a bad person.
Ramona cheated on me, I think.
Yeah, she cheated on me. She's just she's a heartbreaker. And then Kim looks at Wallace and says, does that remind you of anybody? Yeah. And Wallace is like, they might be a match made in heaven. Because it's true. But as far as that relationship goes, in the Me Too movement, it would be seen as problematic for... I mean, there wasn't really ever an age said. So I think they were very smart with not saying an age because...
no, they say... Well, I don't know.
Wait, was she 17?
Yeah, she's 17.
It said 17. All right.
Yeah, it says 17.
Then you just have to look up the age of consent in Canada.
In the comics, if someone says that she's younger, he like puts his foot down. He's like, no, she's 17. I wasn't really creeped out by, but we knew these people, don't we? Like, we knew people growing up who like dated younger than their age and stuff like that.
My sister dated guys that were in their 20s when she was 17, 18. So it's like, it's not like it's unrealistic.
It's definitely not unrealistic, but in the same sense,
it's kind of creepy to see a 23 because in the comics he's 23, in the movie he was 22, I think.
Yeah.
But does the fact that he's in his mid 20s dating a schoolgirl,
and that's what Kim gives him crap for, right? When the film starts, he's like, haven't you been out of high school for
like 12 years?
Yeah. And he has to keep like putting his foot down with that. I felt like just as realistic as the situation is, it's the same situation where he kind of in her eyes he's everything. He's out of school. He has a cool rock band. You know, he gets to hang with his friends all day, and it's very much the idealistic adult life if you're in school.
Well, that's what's weird about the graphic novel the graphic novel Knives compared to the movie Knives is she's actually more assertive in the comics, where even her and Ramona fight in the library.
At one point,
she was the one that said he cheated on both of us.
Yes.
In the movie, he had to be the one to admit it, but in the comic, she was the one that said he actually cheated on both of us, and that's when they were already living together by volume 4. And she wakes him up in the middle of the night, and he's like groggy. He's like, "Did you cheat on me with Knives?" He's like, "No, I cheated on Knives with you."
Yeah.
She's like, "Is there a difference?" He's like, "You weren't wronged."
Yeah.
Which is Scott Pilgrim. Like that's Scott Pilgrim.
That was his logic.
That's his logic. Yeah,
that was his logic.
Like I didn't cheat on you with her. I cheated on her with you. So I didn't wrong you.
Yeah.
But it's still you wronged somebody. So
I also think it's important to note that in the beginning of this film, we don't know how far into the relationship that they've been on, but he seems to be fine.
I think it was brand new. Might have been new. The way he was introducing to his friends.
Yeah, he seems to be digging it. He seems to be fine with it. He's happy. At one point, they say that he looks pleased as punch, and he seems very...
I don't know what you're talking about.
He seems very happy. How do you feel about Knives herself as a character and as portrayed by Ellen Wong in her first theatrical debut?
I liked her portrayal of Knives because it was more realistic towards a young teenage girl who's never dated a guy before. She says, I've never even kissed a guy before. I've never dated a guy. So to see her, like, how she acts crazy, stalking him at the house, at the window, dyeing her hair.
But you know what's weird, though? I feel like that's the kind of behavior that if you're into her, you dig. I only feel like I feel like the movie goes out of its way to portray it as almost stalkerish and annoying because he's not into her.
Yeah,
because if Ramona was doing all that stuff, he'd be like, "Oh my God, look, she just showed up at the door. Oh my God, the girl of my dreams is right outside this phone booth or whatever." But because this is someone that he's trying to avoid, and he doesn't really understand what his feelings are towards her yet, it seems like she's always there. Why is she always? This is the same guy who, at one point, sits outside his door, literally waiting for the girl of his dreams to be on the other side. You know?
Yeah.
And when he thinks that somebody is on the other side, it's Knives. And Knives is here. Knives got there before.
That's what I love about that scene where you see in the beginning of their hanging out, that you see the introduction of their relationship. She's talking about her days in school, and he's just like, well, yeah, that's cool. You know, yeah, that's fun. This and this and that. And then by the second time they're dating, after already met Knives, after he met Ramona, he's over it. He's like, yeah.
And there's definitive points in conversation that show the glaring differences in age. And like, you have to think that happens all the time. The only way to really bridge that gap is to rush the development of the younger person in the relationship.
So you can see the age gap where she's all like Degrassi High, gossipy, and...
Well, when they go to the school, and then Scott's like, I don't want to be here. And it's like, Well, bro, if this is your girl, you understand? This is your boo.
No, it was Wallace that didn't want to be there.
It was Wallace that didn't want to be there?
Wallace was the one that was very
adamant. I thought Scott
was
the one that was like, I don't want to. No, Scott. I don't think I want to.
No, Scott took her. Scott took Wallace with him just for the walk, and then once he meets up with Knives, he's like, all right, you can go now, Wallace. Goodbye.
Yeah, and so he was. I'm just thinking, like, if this is your girl, if this is your boo, this is your the love of your life, but wear it with pride. Like, this is your girl and stuff. But when Knives, when Scott tells Knives, this is my roommate, he's gay, and she's like, oh, do you want to know the other gay guys in my school? Like, that's a random young thing that young people would say.
No, that is something.
You know, that's like
my sister
random,
would say that.
like a random, like, oh, you're gay? I know one gay person. Would you like to meet him? Like, there's no relation. When you grow older, you realize that that's not something you would say with any kind of group, any kind of demographic. You understand? Like, oh, this is my and they play around a lot with that. The whole idea that Knives is Chinese, and sometimes on
every time levels, in the comics, every time they introduced Wallace, he would always introduce him as, "This is Wallace, my cool gay roommate."
Yeah.
That was always it was Wallace, the cool gay roommate.
Yeah, and at one point he says something like you already gated up enough for me. Like, I didn't have to do anything. You just ruined this whole situation.
Oh, I can't believe you're worried about me gaying up the place.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Let's get into Wallace a little bit. Wallace,
my favorite favorite side character of this whole movie.
The voice of reason, the voice of truth, the scandalous Wallace Wells, played by Kieran Culkin of Macaulay Culkin fame.
Of the Macaulay Culkin family.
Ah, okay. And he's Scott's gay roommate, and he is always the one kind of breaking it down to Scott. Now, their roommate situation is terrible. Scott owns nothing. They have one bed. It's a mattress on the floor. They have no light. Basically. It's a futon.
They have no natural light. Sorry.
Yeah, no natural light. I think it's a futon on the floor, and that's something that was both in the comic and in the
where even that whole scene where he's like, oh, does that mean you're going to move out now? It's like, do you see another bed? Does that mean we have to stop sleeping together? Do you see another bed in here?
Yeah.
Nope, you're totally my bitch forever.
And they start cataloging who
belongs
to who.
Shot for shot from the comic, and I love it.
Definitely.
All those little details. And one little fun fact I love, since we're already in the beginning. Did you know that the whole floor stretching for the opening song, Launchpad McQuack, that was suggested by Tarantino?
Ah,
that was a Tarantino idea where he
said
that
opening is amazing. It's really
one
good.
Of the best openings because every time a new actor is introduced, they have their own animation design,
and all those animation designs were hand drawn, and you can see the hand drawn. Like, they're not clean cuts like a computer or digital artist, or like you're just taking clip art and putting them places. This is literal hand drawn animation, which not only speaks to the attention to detail, but also the craftsmanship. And this film is well crafted. It's crafted in a way that warrants multiple viewings. And when you watch it multiple times, you'll find different things. But also, it doesn't bombard you. I don't feel like it bombards you.
You were
with stuff,
100% right, because when I went to rewatch this movie, one thing that I didn't notice until finally rewatching it again, every X uses a number.
Yeah.
Like when Matthew Patel points to Scott Pilgrim at the Chaos Theater, he points with one hand. Mm-hmm. When Lucas Lee points at Scott Pilgrim, he's like, "I'm talking to you, Scott Pilgrim." He points with two. Todd Ingram, when he was drinking the coffee, you see him holding the coffee with three hands. Also, Lucas Lee has a 2 tattooed on his neck.
Yeah.
But they show the X. It's very apparent that they show the number of X's and what their placement is. Just the fact that also one big thing that no one will notice unless you really pause. During the scene of Scott Pilgrim of Sex Bomb versus the Katayanagi twins, when the Katayanagi twins move their dials, they both turn their dial to 5 and 6 because they're Evil X 5 and 6, which they both. And when you defeat them, you get 11,000 coins.
I was saying that might be a nod to Spinal Tap. When you turn those amps to 11,
that's why originally I thought, hey, maybe they're doing a nod to Spinal Tap, but then I went back and I noticed that every X had their placement number with them.
Yeah, somewhere around them. They kept that close.
That is Edgar Wright's attention to detail that you won't get in many directors, many filmmakers won't really use that much attention to detail. Where you even see 5X. What was it? When he's
walking like by the railroad,
and Wallace, you hear Wallace's voice in the background where he's like 7 deadly X's. Oh, you see 5 X's. You only see 5 X's above him, which means 5 down, 2 to go.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about Edgar Wright before getting into the rest of this cast.
One of my favorite filmmakers.
Definitely talented, young British director. Most notable for the Cornetto trilogy. I think that's one of his most famous works, amongst other things, especially
being screwed over for Ant-Man.
Yeah, but he seems to always want to tell. Oh, not always want to tell. He seems exceptionally good at telling a certain kind of story, and it seems to do with not only a reluctant hero, but the idea that the mundane will be portrayed as spectacular. When you look at Hot Fuzz, it's literally this guy's a mall cop. You understand? He's basically a mall cop in that film.
Well, that was perfect with Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
he was a video store clerk. He worked at like an electronics store. He's walking through the whole city of London during a zombie apocalypse, not even noticing that the zombie apocalypse was happening.
Because he's basically a zombie himself, just doing the same thing over and over again.
That's the social commentary that Edgar Wright puts in his films. Like, we are so zombified in our own life.
I didn't realize you were so touched.
We were so zombified in our own life that we can't even notice when an actual zombie apocalypse is happening.
Yeah. And one of the things about that mundane being portrayed as spectacular that he loves to do is the like gear up scene. He does it in all his films.
Every film has that gear up scene.
And I think it comes from like just 80s action films where you see like, I'm putting the bullets across my chest and I'm
just be his style. Like the jump cut style.
But the thing is, it's never anything really cool. It's like in this film, it's wristbands, and then he take 30 seconds to tie an Adidas.
That was one of the best edits ever, because if you know Edgar Wright's style, you know everything is fast-paced editing. So when you just get to that 30 seconds of him throwing one lace over the other and tying it mad slow, and then he runs out the house in slow motion, it's great.
Yeah. But Scott Pilgrim is kind of an everyman. He's a regular guy. And
100%.
This plays right into Edgar Wright's wheelhouse of picking regular, I guess not regular guys, but people that people can relate to.
Everyday guys, like, you're right, because Scott Pilgrim he reminds me of every guy I went to high school with. He reminds me of myself sometimes. I wasn't the nicest guy in high school sometimes. We're all self-absorbed. We all like to just be either right all the time or just, be liked by everybody. And I think that's what Scott's problem was in the comic, was he always tried to be liked by everybody.
Yeah. This film, like I said, when I first saw it, I related a lot to Scott. Also, I was 21 when this film came out, so I was literally primed for this whole...
Oh, damn, I was like 19.
Yeah, I was literally primed for this whole experience. And it does feel like... I mean, if you're watching it for the first time, it does feel like Scott's not at fault. Like, he's making mistakes, and he's fumbling, but as you do in life. And I think that we're supposed to recognize the trajectory of growth by the end of the film, when he chooses to actively make a choice and actively work on the relationship with Ramon.
That's why I like when he dies in the first fight, but he has an extra life, and he comes back and they does everything again, but even faster. And then Gideon's like, "You want to fight me for her?
Well,
why?"
Not only that, but by choosing to not only acknowledge but compliment his friends, he's doing it better. He's doing it more mature.
Where you even see Kim smile for the first time in this entire movie. When he says, "Kim, I'm sorry the way I treated you. You're great," and all that.
And that's probably all she ever needed. Just acknowledgement that something was done wrong, and that's
100%
sorry for it.
Yeah, because in the comics, like in the graphic novels, it shows like Kim doesn't hate Scott. She just hates that Scott is aloof to his own shitty personality.
Yeah,
like he thinks he's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah,
and that's not the truth. He's not.
That's another thing. At 22. You're rarely apologizing for anything.
Oh yeah, who among us at 22 didn't think we were gods?
You understand? This I have it right. Life has it wrong. Life's putting me in the wrong direction. But screw it. I'm gonna fight it upstream, and I'm gonna get what I want. And half of that's true. Like, you can still fight upstream, and you can still get what you want. But life is not against you. Life is happening to everybody simultaneously.
Sometimes you just gotta roll with the punches and compromise.
It's literally happening to everyone at the same time simultaneously. So how does it have time to literally pinpoint you and make your life ridiculous. Sometimes that happens because of the people around you and their lives and how they're choosing to live their lives. They're making choices. And the thing with Scott is literally everyone around him made a choice. Envy, while not making a good choice, his ex-girlfriend, she didn't make a choice. And that choice ultimately got her and her band world famous. World famous. And so in the comic, there's a lot of jealousy for that. There's a lot of anger and jealousy for them, for the band breaking up and Envy getting further than he did. And how many people can Scott blame until he finally just realizes that he needs to do something about it?
No, of course.
But I do think that the first time you see this, and depending on what age that you are, seeing this, you're gonna feel it from a different perspective.
Oh no, when I very first watched this movie, I thought I was Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, I'm definitely Wallace this time without kissing the guys. I mean, listen, if people out there like kissing guys, that's fine. It's not my thing. It's a mustache just like
I have to credit this movie for the fact that I learned how to play guitar because of this movie. Like I bought a guitar in December of 2010 because I needed to learn how to play all the Sex Bomb songs. And the first song I ever learned how to play was Threshold.
Which one's that one?
The one that they played when they were facing off against the Karinagi twins.
Okay, yeah.
Where it's like, we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff.
Yeah. Now my favorite is that Garbage Truck song.
That is everybody's favorite song.
I guess because I didn't think I'd like it so much because he's talking about being a garbage man and he has a garbage truck. And I think it's about love somewhere in there. But just, they have a level of swagger in that song. And he also has one of my favorite movie moments, which is Neil thinking he's singing along with it.
Yep.
And he gets it wrong.
I've been there.
He says like, oh yeah. And the guy
oh
says,
my,
like, oh,
my,
no.
my. I think the lyric was my. And Neil said, oh no, my.
Yeah, something like that.
I've been there, Neil.
He messed up the lyric. And oh my God, it's so funny. Let's talk about music then. Let's talk about the music that's in this film.
Beck wrote all of it.
And it's a lot of it is garage bandy. A lot of grunge, a lot of, alternative rock. And is it me or does the Sex Bomb stuff sound like it's not well mastered? Like it's not, like they haven't got the levels right with everything.
I think that's the perfect, I think that's why it was done on purpose.
Like bass is way too high and everything. Maybe it's because Scott?
Yeah, you don't hear the drums at all.
Yeah, it's like, there's like a weird, and it's like a weird, like distortion. You can hear like a weird distortion going on through it.
Oh yeah, you see, he has the foot pad. There's a distortion pad for that he hits to get the Yeti. But
yeah,
Mark Webb and what was her? Why am I gonna get her name? You probably have it already here. Allison Pill and Mark Webb were supposed to mock play.
Oh, okay,
but they wanted to learn.
Yeah, they all learn the instruments.
Well,
I heard Sarah is a bass player.
Michael Cera learned, and I got this from the DVD commentary. Michael Cera learned how to play guitar because of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. He was supposed to mock it, just like Aaron Yoon, his other gay friend, was mocking to play the guitar. Michael Cera's like, no, it's 4 chords. I can learn this.
Yeah, and
then he picked up guitar, and now he's a full-on guitar player. So he was the only one that knew how to play an instrument.
Yeah, none of these songs are like. I wouldn't call them like complicated.
I mean, listen to the titles: Launchpad, McQuack, Garbage Truck, Threshold, and then there was the other one that they're Summertime Madness, or something like that.
Yeah. I was like Summertime Sadness. That's Lana Del Rey.
Well, yeah, it's something Summertime. And wait, do you? Oh,
yeah, but I think that You almost wait for moments in the film, especially with like a Michael Cera film, a young adult film, a young romance film. These are usually ladled with studio music, like not studio music, but like popular music. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like a pop culture soundtrack. Like you would hear like songs that were either nostalgic or on the radio now.
Yeah, and I don't feel like you got a lot of that. Although there's an amazing By Your Side cover on this album.
No, that wasn't a cover. That's Beachwood Sparks.
Yeah, but that's from Sade sang that song first. Sade? I'm saying that wrong.
No, you're right. Sade.
Yeah.
Sade. Yeah.
She said that she sang that song first because that's the only version of that song I heard.
That's right. I remember that version. She's the version I found because I thought Beachwood Sparks was the original.
No, yeah, she's the one I've always heard. And then when that song, it's like, I know that. Are they playing that song? I know. But I always get Sade mixed up with Dido sometimes because they have that kind of, both great singers. But I love the ability to ramp it up and slow it down when they needed to. And the Sex Bomb Moms are a character in itself, and their music is a character in itself. Literally at one point, personifying into a Yeti and attacking 2 dragons.
Yeah, that's was probably a really underrated fight scene because it wasn't really a fight. It was a battle of the bands, but just to see like a giant Yeti come from his distortion pad, they turn the dials up to 11. You see 2 dragons come. It's pretty cool.
Are you a Sex Bomb fan?
I'm a huge Sex Bomb fan because I'm originally a Beck fan. I love Beck's music. My father introduced me to Beck.
And there's a lot of Beck that sounds like garage band kind of music.
Well, I think that was what Beck's. That's who he was. He was a garage band thing. That was his style. Mm-hmm. So he wrote all the songs. He wrote Ramona, Threshold, Garbage Truck. The only song he didn't write was Launchpad McQuack because that's actually in the comic where when you see Knives going to the band practice and then they're all playing. They have the whole chords and lyrics where it says, "Now, hey kids, now you can play along with Sex Bombs."
Yeah,
which is funny because the comic book actually breaks the fourth wall a bunch of times. I think it was in the second book where everybody was getting together to eat vegan shepherd's pie.
Okay.
And Stephen Stills literally looks at the panel and says, "Hey kids, with the adults' help, now you can make your own vegan pie." And you see all the ingredients and everything.
Yeah.
How much time to put it in, what to chop up. So I like how it breaks the fourth wall for funny things like that.
Yeah.
Where it says, "Hey kids, now you can play along with Sex Bombs." Yeah. And here's the lyrics and here's the chords.
And they're good. I mean, Gideon gives them a record deal. I don't know if that's altruistic
music to his ear holes.
Yeah.
And eye holes.
And he calls them sex bombs. You don't call them sex bombs.
Yes, the sex bombs.
Yeah. Knives thinks that they're good. Neil thinks that they're good. Do you think that they're subjectively good in that universe?
In that universe, they're really good.
Okay.
Yes, because if you look at the bands that they faced off against,
the Crash and the Boys.
They beat. Is
that girl a boy too?
Crash is all 3 of the because it was in the comics. There was 3 songs.
Yeah.
It was I'm so sad. I'm so very very sad.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was this song is called We Hate You Please Die.
Yeah.
And then it was Last Song Kills the Audience where they knock out the audience for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That was a deleted scene. So they were pretty bad. They were like only 30-second songs, 5-second songs. Mm-hmm. And when they went against another band, every band they went up in the battle of bands, they won.
Like Clash.
Oh, the Clash at Demon Head?
At Demon Head, yeah.
Well, if you like that, just listen to what's the name of the band? I'm gonna lose Metro something. I'm gonna have to look it up for you. I'm gonna look it up for you guys and let you know because it was actually a real song from an actual band in Canada. They were just based off of it.
Well, yeah, I heard majority of the songs here were performed by bands in Canada, like garage bands in Canada and stuff. So that makes a lot of sense.
And what's crazy is all the voices. Every time there's a voiceover in the movie. Yeah. You know who that is? Bill Hader.
I heard that was Bill Hader. Yeah, I didn't catch it off the rip.
I originally thought it was just the beginning where Scott Pilgrim is dating a high school. No, every time you hear a voice, Scott earns the power of love. And then it was time. Is he the KO
guy?
The what?
Is he the KO guy?
Yes,
KO.
He's KO too. And any voiceover, that's all Bill Hader's voice. I don't think he was credited, and that's the problem.
Huh.
I don't think he was credited because I don't think I remember seeing him, or maybe it would say Bill Hader various voices in the credits. But yeah, anytime there was a voiceover, that was him.
And always every time they played a song, whether it was just background music or a song on screen, the editing with it was always top notch. It was always going along with the song, but also
I love it because it had the pows and the punches just like in comics. It was a comic book movie.
Specifically, I'm thinking of that Clash of the Demon Head performance where she's performing and they're constantly going between like Todd and her. And Ramona, and then Scott.
Oh, yeah, and the way they edit it, you see where Ramona and Todd are on the same screen, Envy and Scott are on the same screen.
Right, exactly. And then she's also saying, like, I used to know you used to be a friend. Like, it's all playing into it. Like, and it's funny because Edgar Wright had originally conceived this as, like, a musical.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a musical, but instead of breaking out into song and dance, it was supposed to break out into fight.
Yeah.
Which I like.
You have a little bit of that, like, Bollywood stuff early with Matt Patel. Is it Matthew?
Yeah, it's Matthew Patel. Sadia. I don't want to pronounce his name. Sadia I don't want to butcher it and feel so like I'm a racist or something because I can't pronounce the name.
Well, let's get into the Sex Bomb members real quick. Like I said, Alison Pill plays Kim Pine, and that's one of Scott's exes from
high school. High school? Yep.
Yeah, one of Scott's exes from high school.
Kicked this guy so hard he saw the curvature of the earth.
Yes, he she's also kind of giving him grief almost always throughout this film. And is it that chip on the shoulder from him never acknowledging what he did?
Well, he basically didn't break up with her the right way. Like, he knew he was moving for like 3 months. Yeah. And then he waited until moving day to say, hey, we got to break up, I'm moving.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
Yeah.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah. We also have Mark Webber as Steven Stills, aka the Talent. He's the lead singer.
Yes, he's the talent.
Yeah, he is the talent, and that's basically the band. It's Kim, Steven, and Scott. But you also got Johnny Simmons as young Neil Nordgraf
or something
and
like
she's
that.
He's not only Sex Bomb Mom's biggest fan, but he also is the substitute bassist for the band when Scott is not around, and ultimately when they sign their deal, it's Neil who signs as part of the band under Gideon's record label.
Real quick, the band that I was thinking of was Metric.
Metric, okay.
And the song is Black Sheep. Mm-hmm. And that's a real song by that band that was just covered. And it's funny because Clash at Demon Head is a video game.
Yeah, Nintendo video game as well.
Yep.
Like we were saying, there's constant Nintendo references.
Oh, no, there's so many video games. This movie is like a video game comic book love child. It's just like everything.
Yeah.
I love the whole hyperspace, that Canadians don't have hyperspace there. So Ramona's just... What was it? The hyperspace, I think in the way explained in the comics was there was this really convenient highway in your head that's like 300 miles in like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Which subtly says there's nothing in his head.
Yeah.
His head is so empty that she could literally just skate right through his head. And that's why he ended up thinking that's the girl of his dreams.
Yeah. With Wallace is constantly narking on Scott's stuff with Stacy Pilgrim, played by Anna Kendrick.
Fun fact: the Stacy name tag that she has is actually Edgar Wright's. Brian Lee O'Malley. I think it was Edgar Wright's or Brian Lee O'Malley.
I think it's Brian Lee O'Malley.
It was her sister. That was her sister's name tag from work.
Yeah, I think it was Brian Lee O'Malley.
Probably was Brian Lee O'Malley.
But to tie it back to Edgar Wright, Anna Kendrick dated Edgar Wright for quite some time.
Just so crazy in my head. Like, wow.
And Edgar Wright's one of the ones that had suggested her for Squirrel Girl. So.
Are they gonna do a Squirrel Girl?
I don't know if they're gonna do a Squirrel Girl, but I watch anything with Anna Kendrick, and I'm a fan. of Anna Kendrick.
Have you seen Mr. Right?
I've heard of this.
You have to watch this. Dude, it is one of the best Sam Rockwell, Anna Kendrick movies ever. Of this, He plays this assassin that wants to be out. He just wants to be a normal life, and he meets Anna Kendrick, and he falls in love.
Yeah.
It's one of the best comedies I've seen. It's so great.
I saw Up in the Air. I think that's her and
another great movie. Yeah.
Her and George Clooney. Yeah.
Which, fun fact about that, this is all going to tie in together because 6 Degrees of Separation, everything is together.
Yeah, well, look right there. She was in a movie with Batman. She was in a movie with Justin Hammer.
And the director of Up in the Air, Jason Reitman, is good friends with Edgar Wright, and he was one of the few people that saw the rough cut. It was Jason Reitman, Kevin Smith, and Quentin Tarantino that all saw a rough cut of the movie. Yeah. So, like, everything is just... 6 Degrees of Separation is a real scientific thing because we really are only 1 to 6 degrees separated from everything in this world.
Every single thing. Isn't that crazy, though?
Like, she was in a movie with a director that needed consultation with another director and dated this director. It's like, this just crazy. Where you even have... Captain America's in this movie.
Yes,
Superman is in this movie.
Yes, he is.
Captain Marvel's in this movie.
Yep, and from Legion itself, Aubrey Plaza plays Julie Powers, Steven Stills' ex.
I forgot she was in Legion.
Yes, Steven Stills' ex-girlfriend. Is she the ex?
She's
the ex in the book.
And in the comic, it was in the movie. He wanted to like get back with her just in that like one scene, but it was in the comics. It wasn't. It was like they were like always on and off. There wasn't like she was adamant about not dating him.
Yeah, she's her character is basically a hanger-on, right? Like she's just like a big groupie for like Envy and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's all that she really is.
And what's crazy in the third book, Infinite Sadness, when Envy interrupts her, when she's like, "I'm talking to Ramona," there's a little panel where it says Julie needs to be in the conversation at all times or something like that.
Oh, okay. So she just needs.
There's so many like things I thought they could have brought it in, like when Todd doesn't know the word.
There's literally 6 volumes. Like,
I know.
Just talking about it's hard.
It's just those little details that they picked. I felt that they picked and chose a lot of the details that they wanted to put in. Like when she's like, "You are incorrigible," and Todd's like, "I don't know the meaning of the word," and it says he really doesn't.
Shows up.
That's really there. So
yeah.
when he tells young Neil, "For this moment on, you would be called Neil." In the comics, there's a panel that said this was the greatest moment in Neil's life.
Yeah.
I would love to see.
You hear like a sound effect. You hear like a level up sound effect.
Yeah, that's which is Edgar Wright is the man.
And that's another thing. Because they couldn't do everything, they did find ways to shortcut some stuff, but they kept the meaning and they kept the importance of it. I felt.
Oh no, the heart, the tone, everything made sense. When you're reading these books, you expect their relationship to be over the course of a year because you're reading this book once for 6 years.
Yeah.
You're following the story. For 6 years, you're following one book a year. So it makes sense that by the 4th book, Scott and Ramona are actually moving in together. The Sex Bombs has their first album.
And this is over Is the six books over 1 year?
It was over the course of 1 year because I think it was in the 4th or 5th book. It was really subtle where it's like, haven't you and Ramona been dating a year now?
Yeah, but in the book he has terrible memory. At one point he can't even remember like his.
That's for a reason. Gideon Graves messed with his memory in the comic. That's what it was in the comic. You know where in the 3rd one where he fights the whole horde of schools for Kim?
Yeah.
That was a made up memory.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
There's a lot of things that like in the movie it's like Scott's backstory. In the comics you find out Gideon put that in his head.
But that almost made me. I enjoyed the film much more on the second viewing, also with the background knowledge that I had from the comics. But I also saw this with somebody who had never seen it and they enjoyed it too. Is it just levels of enjoyment? Like you will always enjoy this film?
I feel there is levels of enjoyment. Like you can, if you're a regular moviegoer, there's no way this movie's not going to be entertaining. If you're a film fanatic, there's no way that this movie is not going to be seen as a masterpiece. If you're a comic book fan, there's no way that this movie is not going to be seen as one of the most accurate movies you've ever seen. There's who you are doesn't depend on if you're going to enjoy this movie. I think this movie is just going to be enjoyed by everybody. And though it was a box office bomb, it's still critically one of Edgar Wright's best movies.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That budget was 85 to 90 million and it made 47 million.
Oh my, it
did not make its production budget back, and that's huge because
that's a flop.
Breaking even is not really a win, but people see that as a win in comparison to not breaking even. So
nah, I never see breaking even into a win because just because this budget was 90 million doesn't mean their marketing money wasn't in the budget. Like you have to pay for TV spots.
Sometimes that's an additional. Yeah, it's an additional.
Yeah, so when you break even, you still have to make back what you have to pay these actors, what you have to pay the crew.
Yeah.
Breaking even is just nothing.
And we spoke a little bit off air, but yeah, it turns out that if you add up like the totals of all Edgar Wright's films, they barely breached 200 million.
That is sad. To think that nobody actually went to theaters more than once to see
James Wan has a $1 billion film under his belt.
Oh my god.
It's true, bro.
I know.
It's true, bro. $1 billion. I mean, James Wan, kill it, Mr. Wan.
Justin Lin has 3 $1 billion movies because he directed the last 3 Fast and the Furiouses. From like 6 to 8, he directed them. So he has like 3 $1 billion movies.
Yeah,
but Edgar Wright can't even crack 2.
I guess there's definitely an audience for that kind of stuff too.
And that's what I find it weird is when things become cult followings. I think that's more disrespectful than if you just like, how is it you wait 10 years for a movie to be considered, wow, this is actually a masterpiece.
I can see that. But I see both sides of it. I
understand why it's like that. Like, some comic book movie I think I went back and watched where growing up I loved. Now watching it, Spawn, Blade. Yeah. Growing up I thought they were great. Now they're bad. Certain movies that I thought were bad, like Ghost Rider, I have an appreciation for because it's like, it's Nicolas Cage. So, but I digress. The point is like,
but it's also the same thing like with this, right? I would love to think that the person who's listening to this episode right now has followed us on the journey from the beginning or somewhere down the line. But somebody's going to be hearing this for the first time. Somebody's going to be hearing my first episode for the first time and being like, wow, this is really something I want to listen to. No, and at that point,
any viewer that listens to these episodes leave with either having a new sense of appreciation, having a new sense of hatred, or watching it for the first time.
And it's the same thing with Edgar Wright, and it's the same thing with these movies. And like you said with Michael Cera, where you meet if you've never seen some of these actors before, if you've never seen this director's flair for style, this is the crash course right here. And from here, you get to make an informed opinion about whether or not you like this kind of stuff.
If you're not an Edgar Wright fan, this movie will seem excessive. Because it's just like, it has like the level up, you see a piss bar.
I heard that too. I just feel like I feel like our generation and down will get this in a way that other generations won't, because a lot of us were not ignored, but kind of raised on video games. Like sitting in front of waking up, turning
and we're
video
90s
games
babies,
on,
we're 90s kids, so we have a different sense of movies. We grew up with a nonstop action or horror. Like every year was a new action movie, every year was a new horror movie, a disaster film, some sort of biopic, and
that's a lot of when the magic starts to leave your eyes in the 90s, and that's why these guys are so unaffected by everything. And
I don't think this movie would have worked in any other decade. Like, you need you need the computer animation, you needed the editing, everything just worked.
It is a soft spot because it's also not the blow up of social media. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like that would have changed this film in a different way.
Oh, if like this movie came out now.
Yeah, you would have to have something about social media somewhere in it because there's no part of this world that's not covered.
It's sad you don't even see memes about this movie. Like, you see memes of... They get movies back from the 1960s and they make memes out of it, and not one Scott Pilgrim meme.
I also feel like this film is very personal to people. You understand? Like you said yourself.
This is a personal film to me. Yes.
And because people have that personal feeling towards it, maybe that's why it doesn't have the big blockbuster. Everyone will get this joke kind of vibe. But the ones who do get the joke will really get the joke and really appreciate the joke the same way the ones that do get this movie will really appreciate this movie and get this movie. And then, you know, movies are subjective. You can feel however you want to feel about them. But
you love what you love. You hate what you hate. No one can tell you how you feel about whatever you watch or listen to or see. It's just sometimes it's easier if everybody just loved the same thing. Sometimes.
Yeah, we probably would have got a part 2 from this, and a whole nother series of books. But we beat around the flowers as much as we could. It's time to get to the main event, the probably the biggest character that moves the plot along in this film, and that is Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Ramona Flowers, which
is a perfect casting. Besides the fact that she has the look, besides the fact that she fills the tone of who Ramona Flowers is, she's in a lot of obscure movies that no one really remembers. She was in Final Destination 3. She was in Sky High.
Was she like in Death Proof or something like that?
She was in Death Proof. Yes, she was.
Okay.
She was one of the girls in Death Proof.
And there's the Tarantino tie-in again. So
everything's connected.
Everything's connected. How do you feel about Ramona in this film? How do you feel about Ramona in the book? And how do you feel about Miss Winstead's ability to portray those qualities?
I think the first time I ever read this book, I read it under what Brian Lee O'Malley said, that he based this character Ramona off of an ex that broke his heart in high school.
Okay.
So when I first went into reading this, I went into reading thinking she's a bad person.
Oh, okay.
Come to find out, she's not a bad person at all. No. I think she's truly misunderstood. Where she even says it herself, you know, I've dabbled on being a bitch. Part of the reason why I moved out here. She's one of the only few characters that accepts her flaws. And she's been accepting her flaws since the beginning.
I agree that she accepts her flaws. I think Ramona's issue in this film and in the book is that she thinks that if you run away from problems, they will just go away. And the film is ultimately a culmination of all her problems proving that they're not going anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And if Scott doesn't put his foot down, and ultimately she had to put her foot down against Gideon, or else that problem would have continued. It would have maintained.
And that's why Volume 6 is probably one of the best.
She at every point in this film, she's trying to run away. At various points, she's like, "Let's just split up," and then at one point, she's like, "Let's just break up," and then at another point,
it shows in the comics that she's never truly got away. Gideon always has a handle on her.
Yeah,
like I think it was in the second book or the third book, she finds a cat on the street and adopts the cat.
Oh yeah, he calls him Gideon.
Turns out that cat was planted by Gideon.
My gosh.
That whole little chip in the back of her neck, it was different. It was actually, he was always in her head.
Yeah.
It wasn't that he had a way of getting into her head. He was always like sitting in this throne with like this big ass sword sitting in her head. And like in the sixth book was this final battle between every year of Ramona, every version of Ramona versus Gideon.
Oh, okay.
Which is dope. You have like 15-year-old Ramona, 20-year-old Ramona. You have Ramona with the red hair, Ramona with blue hair.
Yeah, ultimately that kind of should have been her fight, right? Like
it should have been her fight, and that's why I like. But I like that they did the Knives versus Ramona on the side of Gideon versus Scott.
Oh, that scene is filmed very, very well. I really, really like just that whole everything in the Chaos Theater.
I think he did his own choreography. Sarah.
Sarah?
Because I was watching a lot of the on the DVD, they have a lot of the scenes that they'll have it without the animation yet.
Yeah.
So instead of you seeing this big flaming sword, he's just holding like a small little stick. He's holding like a handle of a sword, and you actually see him doing the motions of swinging. Like he learned all of it. Like the stuff that went into filming this movie. These actors really did a great job, and Ramona is no exception. I think she was perfect in this movie. She really does push the plot forward.
Yes.
I mean, you think it's Scott's story.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to find love. He's trying to conquer exes to get his love. But really, it's about who Ramona is. And you see that more in the comics.
Her having to come to grips with that. When I first read this book, when I first saw the movie, Ramona did seem like that tropey, mysterious,
what you would
really
call
hot,
the daydream pixie girl. That's the term for it. Like 500 Days of Summer with...
Manic?
Yeah, I think it was Manic Pixie Girl. Yeah,
Manic Pixie Girl. The idea of Manic being like unpredictable, living by the seat of her pants.
And I think Pixie Girl is just the way their style
magical
was.
and all that kind of like just yeah. So I think the first time I saw this film, that's how I felt. The second time I saw this film, I was a little bit like, there's a lot of signs in the things that she's saying to you and the things and the way that she's acting that tells you she wants nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah,
and it's
she
all right
rejects
there.
him like 3 times, and he kept asking her out. Say, hey, do you want to go out with me? No.
And then the first date that they go on, he doesn't plan anything. They don't do anything.
He even shows up late because he thinks she wasn't going to show up.
They just walk down the street, and then they get stuck in a snowstorm, which brings them back to her house, and then everything with the tea and the I'm not going to have sex with you right now, Scott, stuff. And that's a choice that she makes, you know? He was all in for it. He was in for all that stuff, and he was with Knives.
Is one of the funniest jokes, probably my favorite joke of the movie was, can this not be a one-night stand? For one thing, I didn't even get any.
Yeah, and that's straight from the comic.
Yeah,
that's straight from the comic. The same way, all the teas when she's rattling off all those.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead was asked if she wanted to have a picture of all the words
like
in the a script in the closet, and she said no, I want to memorize them. She went and memorized all of that. They were gonna have it right there where she opens it and she's reading it. Nope, she memorized that all in her head.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it was like 15 teas. It was like ginseng with honey, sleepy time, a constant comet, liver disaster.
In the comic, I feel like because we spend more time with her gradually, we see that she is actively trying to like help Scott grow. Like, your hair is kind of this, and your apartment is kind of this. And
you should get a job. You should do this, that. And where he even gets a job to impress her.
Yeah. Whereas Knives is kind of just okay with the way he is, and there's something to that too,
that's what I love about
right?
Knives. She copies all of his ex's styles.
Yeah,
and it's shown in the comic where he's like, Knives started cutting her hair and wearing skirts.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you see she dyes her hair and cuts it just like Ramona, because she thinks that's what Scott wants.
I think I would have dug the red instead of the blue, but I get why they did it because they met her in the blue.
Yeah, and what's funny is in the comics,
she does it red. She dyes her hair red.
I think it was either the comic or the movie. I can't remember where I read it, but her purse, the star, changes color every time she changes her hair.
Okay.
So like when she goes blue halfway through the movie, it's a blue bag. When you first meet her, it's a red bag. It has like a red star.
What do you think it is about Ramona that Scott likes?
I think because
she's attractive.
I think he's using the colloquial of "girl of my dreams" too literal.
Okay.
Like just because you think causality. I went to sleep and this girl was in my dream, and now she's actually real.
I've actually seen her.
So she must be the girl of my dreams. Yeah. Okay. So that's what is pulling him towards her. Is like, this is the girl of my dreams. I've never dreamed of a girl. When really the reason is because she has superpowers, whatever.
Yeah.
Like a subspace
highway. He almost
highway.
downplays his entire life to her. Like, in the same way that he would confidently tell Knives, I'm in a band. Yeah, we kind of rock. When he gets to Ramona, he's like, yeah, we're kind of in a band. We suck, but can you please come? What do you think that's from? What?
I think he knows that I think my personal perspective, he knows he's better than Knives. He's older. He's not in school. Like you said, he has a band. He hangs out with his friends all day. He does whatever he wants. When it comes to Ramona, he sees this like untangible being that he needs to get close to. She has.
But then what's up with the cognitive dissonance of knowing that, but then not seeing that same behavior in Knives?
Because he's
he's
selfish. It's who we are. That's why it's realistic.
It's true. He's doing to Ramona what Knives is doing to him. It's like, what do I have to do to impress you, to be the kind of person that you want to be with? And it's sadder with Knives because she's younger.
So like, she's gonna grow up. She's gonna change. She's not gonna be with the same guy forever.
And they're not telling her the truth. Like that whole scene where she does dye her hair, I think it is sort of kind of emotional. Like, it's not like sad, or it's not like but when you look at it, when you realize the depths and the lengths that we go to change ourselves,
specifically women, have dyed their hair or cut their hair after either a breakup or a mental meltdown. Like, I have female friends that say all the time, like, I had a mental breakdown and I cut my hair and dyed it. So it's like, you see the realism behind Knives being a 17-year-old girl that will do anything to impress this guy that she thinks she loves. Yeah,
because it's one thing to change your appearance and stuff like that because of trauma to start a new chapter, but to change your appearance because you think that somebody else might like it more or might like you more, it shows a lack of faith in your ability just to be as good.
Be yourself.
Yeah, just to be enough.
You're good enough.
To be enough, yeah.
And that was the thing is, she wasn't enough for him. Ramona wasn't enough for him. And I liked that Knives, well, how do I put this? I like in the comics that Knives, like I said, Knives was more assertive. She was more of a badass in the comics. Like, she would do anything.
Yeah.
Where she was even fighting, like 3 times. Has a bunch of fights. I love that. I think they did a good job with the pacing. Where you see Knives was slowly declining into stalkerish crazy. Whereover you follow them in the course of a year, you see her actually growing up.
Yeah, I read, when I was reading the comic, because, ultimately, because of everything with Ramona and because of my man Wallace, Scott has to break up with her. Scott is put in a position where he has to break up with her. And both watching the film and reading the book, I audibly gasped when he says, shouldn't you just be dating somebody in your own race or something like that? And I was like, what?
Well, he said that in the movie too. He's like, aren't you not allowed to date outside your race?
Is, I forgot. I hadn't seen the movie in years. So when I read it in the book, I was like, that's kind of harsh, but maybe this is still early in PC culture. So it is what it is.
Oh, yeah, the first book came out, like 2002 or something like that?
Yeah,
2003.
like 2004, I want to say. And so it's like, okay, it is what it is. But then they adapted the same thing. And it's not played like it's something a jerk would say. It's almost played. Like, she even goes like, no, it doesn't matter. I'm in love or whatever.
It's like, yeah, but aren't I like too old for you and all that?
Yeah, but when he says like the whole, like, shouldn't you be dating? Like, I've heard of all kinds of reasons to break up with somebody or all kinds of like bad excuses and stuff. But to like sit a girl down and be like, I've literally thought about this. You should probably be dating somebody of your own race. Like, what is, man, what? I don't.
And it's funny because Brian Lee O'Malley is like Chinese Canadian.
Does it get cold? But does it get colder than that? Like, I don't know. And
oh man, book 4, Scott Pilgrim gets it together, man. You introduce Knives' father.
I heard Knives' father gets into some of the action.
Yeah, I think the fight was Knives' father and Scott fight Roxy for the first time.
Okay.
And then the second time, it was a fight between Roxy and Ramona, or I think it was Scott and Roxy fighting in Ramona's bag because her purse is a subspace highway. So that's why she could pull out the hammer outside of her purse.
Also, if they weren't going to go into depth with the subspace highway, why even mention it?
I don't know. It was just, I guess,
like I guess
it doesn't matter.
I think
that's the point. Is it doesn't matter.
But I get that. They asked for an explanation. She gave the explanation that she gives in the comics, so I guess that makes sense.
It's like, yeah, you have this really convenient highway in your head that's like 300 miles in 15 seconds.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But yeah, then you have that, like I said, this heartbreaking breakup scene where they show how divided they are, how alone and isolated they are. And then you have this weird, like, I don't know how I'm supposed to be feeling scene where
with T-Rex playing that song Teenage Dream,
where he's there and he's upset over making Knives upset, and he's upset that he broke her heart, but then he thinks for a second about Ramona and he just starts to smile again, and it's all like, well, and that this is also portrayed when he's with the guys, when he's with the band, and they're like, oh, is Knives coming? He's like, no, but you might meet my new girlfriend soon. By the way, I learned this bass line from Final Fantasy. Like, he just on to the next thing, on to the next subject, on to the next, like, don't question me about what just happened there.
I love how Kim calls him the salt of the earth by accident.
Yeah. And he's like, what?
That's a compliment, to be called the salt of the earth.
And he says, what? And she's like, scum. He's like, oh, thanks. He still thinks that
thanks.
He still thinks that it's salt. But we get introduced to the idea that if Scott does really think that this is the girl of his dreams, and if he really wants to be with her, he needs to get through her 7 evil exes.
And break out the L word. Lesbians.
When you saw this in the trailers, when you saw, the promotional material for it, what did you think about that aspect of the story? The Scott versus the 7 evil exes, Scott Pilgrim versus the world, that idea of him having to have an upward battle to get this romantic.
Problem was the trailer together. Was so well edited that I had to watch it a couple of times to find out, wait, what is this movie about?
Yeah, I did also feel like that probably the reason why I hesitated to watch this movie in the first place was because I didn't really get what it was about.
Well, what sold me is like there's the song that plays "Invaders Must Die" by The Prodigy. It was like this down, and every time it does a bass or like the beat drops, you see him punching someone or him getting punched. It was just the editing style behind the trailer was so fantastic, but I did have to watch it like 3-4 times to figure out what it was about. And then when I realized what it's about, Who hasn't been there? Who hasn't wanted to date the most popular girl in school, but you find out that her ex-boyfriend is prom king jock that's supposed to be going to Notre Dame? Who hasn't wanted to date the hottest girl in school to find out that everybody wants her too, and now you have to like fight all of these like would-be romancers to get this girl? I know I've been there.
Yeah,
you've probably been there. So I think it's a concept I can get behind.
But it also makes me wonder how sustainable that is. What's the foundation of that? Like, I am a firm believer of, like the means in which you go, the intent in which you go into something is everything. Like, that's going to dictate how the whole experience is going to go. That's going to dictate the results, all of that stuff. If you go into something with the wrong intention, no matter what good you try to do from it, if it came from ill-gotten or ill-thought means, that it'll eventually end up that way.
I.e., his relationship with knives.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of ways. But I also thought that was going to ultimately happen with Ramona. Like, he was going to be taught a lesson where you can't just be jumping from relationship to relationship just because you feel like the grass is greener over there. Like, he was literally single, but the grass was greener with this younger chick. And everyone's saying that the younger chick is not worth it. Like, what are you doing in this situation? I'm happy here. And then he gets there, and he's not happy there. He's happy here with Ramona.
It's the new toy syndrome. Like, you know, he picks up a new toy, he finds out, wait a minute, there's a better toy out now.
And I guess, it's funny, toys, video games, all that kind of stuff. That's one of the lessons that he learns, is that people are not to be played around with, and that people deserve more from him.
People deserve honesty. I think that's what he learned at the end of the whole movie. I think he learned honesty is the best, which I liked in book 4. Knives finally gets over him.
Okay.
It doesn't take their whole series.
How long does she date young Neil? Because she dates young Neil in this for a little bit, for like a day.
I think it was all of book 4, or maybe they were on and off in book 4.
Yeah. Like,
she was breaking up with him whenever she was like getting pissed off. Like, she would just break up with him for no reason and then text him and come back. And the way Neil is portrayed in the comic, he's like her age. Mm-hmm. He seems like he's a 15-year-old kid. So what guy that's never been given attention by a girl is not gonna go after that girl or let her do whatever she wants? Like, he's young. That's why his name's Young Neil. But that line in the ending of the movie where he goes off with Ramona and she's like, "I'm too cool for you anyways." Yeah. That's how she got over him in the comics.
Yeah. Okay.
Because her father I think there was a whole fight with her father where
it makes you feel better. I mean, ultimately in this whole journey as well with Scott and trying to get Scott, she ultimately found herself too. And to tell you the truth, that's also something very relatable. I think we've all been through bad breakups, or have all had that unrequited love where you're sending your love out to somebody and why don't they just like me? But ultimately you come to the conclusion that she does. Like, I'm pretty damn awesome. And an awesome person's going to like me eventually. So let me just keep being awesome and then eventually...
Well, that's why I love that Wallace said you're too good for him.
Yeah.
Run.
How you feel about Wallace's allegiance to knives throughout the entirety of the film?
Well, I wouldn't really find allegiance towards knives.
He called her an angel.
He called her an angel. But when that whole scene where Knives shows up at Scott's door and he runs out and she like tries to cover for Scott, you see like he's still loyal to his friend. And even in the book where Knives calls up Wallace and she's like, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And he's like, "Sure, but I'm not really doing anything. Why? Where are you at?" And she's like, "I'm outside your door." He opens the door and he's like, "You gotta go."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Damn, Wallace."
I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
And he just looks at her straight up. He's like, "You gotta go." So I see like he feels bad because nobody deserves to be, a rebound. I think that's what he knows. He knows that Knives is just a rebound for Scott.
How do you feel about the double? What's it called? The
double stand? Well, Wallace didn't make up the gay rule.
Yeah, he did not. He didn't write the gay rule book. Wallace did not write the gay rule book. But yeah, let's talk about some of these evil exes. Let's get into Matthew Patel. I think he's
only non-jock, non-white boy that went to school with Ramona.
And he's also like, I want to say courteous, but like he sends him an email and he sends him a letter in the comic. Like he sends him like,
and then he gets mad when he doesn't respond.
He warned him twice, like, and it's long, like, "Hi, hello, my name is Matthew Patel." And
didn't you get my email and letter explaining the situation?
Yeah, and I love that the film subverts your expectation because you're going into the film knowing he has to fight these evil exes. The thing is called Scott Pilgrim versus the World. You see the people on top, and then if you've seen the trailers, you know that's what it's about. So when he's reading this email and it's like, "Hello, my name is whatever, and we will do battle." You're like, "Oh snap! This is the gauntlet. This is the beginning of all this stuff." And he kind of just goes, "This is boring." And he just
skimmed it. Skimmed it.
But he's the first of Ramona's evil exes, and according to Ramona, they only kissed once and broke up after a week. Is that enough to be put in the evil exes league, the league of exes? I don't know. I feel like
I don't think half these exes weren't good enough to be in the League of Evil Exes. Matthew Patel and Lucas Lee specifically shouldn't have been in the League of Evil Exes, but I think it's not so much as they were evil exes as they turned evil because they were exes. And that's what it showed Luke. That's what Lucas Lee's story in the second book is like, I'm only evil because I'm only the bad guy because she made me the bad guy. She cheated on me with Todd Ingram. Right. So like that's why they're evil. Anybody that got scorned by Ramona and turned bad because of it is an evil ex.
Yeah, so Matt comes ready to throw down, and Scott acts like, I don't know what is going on here and stuff. Did you notice the subtle thing in this film where every time he gets into a fight with one of these people, someone says fight?
Yeah.
Someone has to say fight. Majority of the time it is Wallace Wells who says fight or fight. You gotta fight.
Scott, evil ex, fight.
And then I thought that was pretty funny. But Patel has like some kind of like Michael Jackson X moves, and he gets called a pirate.
Pirates are in that year, though.
Yeah, Pirates
were definitely in that year.
People were playing him. How do you feel about his mystical powers and his demon hipster chicks?
Oh, I thought everything. It was just so comic book accurate that I just couldn't help but love the design. Like his design was really done well. You really see the demon hipster chicks.
Yeah,
and also he was a hard person to fight in the video game.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna front. Those demon hipster chicks were really overpowered in the video game for no reason.
Yeah, I'd love to play this game, especially after this.
Oh, you could probably you could download it for free on Xbox Live, probably. Like it's a free game, and it's an 8-bit like side scrolling. Think of it how like the old Ninja Turtles game used to be.
Yeah, I was listening to I'm gonna butcher this. There's a Japanese band that plays a lot of the Scott Pilgrim 8-bit stuff, and I was listening to that stuff, and some of that stuff just makes you happier. I guess it just makes you think of older times.
Well, that's why the movie instantly sold me. For the fact that Universal's logo was done in 8-bit. Oh,
I forgot that. And when the movie started, I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Like that's all you need is that 8-bit opening.
And we'll get to Universal in a bit because it comes up again. But, Matthew Patel, he gets the punches of doom, right? He basically gets knocked out left and right.
So is nobody going to talk about like that Scott actually murdered people in this movie?
Well, the thing is, no one sees it as like a big thing. And I do think that the reason why that Matthew fight is probably even the most important fight here is because it establishes all of the madness that takes place.
That will be that movie, fights. Yeah.
And so, if at this point of the film you have a choice to make, you either dig everything you just saw or you hate everything you just saw. If you hate everything you just saw, you're gonna hate everything else because it only gets more wacky and more bonkers. And I actually, and this is in all my forms of media, I'm fine with you going crazy. Just there's a way you could be crazy on a line, like crazy, but also
be entertaining with it. Yes, don't be definitely. Like a boring crazy.
And this movie was incredibly entertaining in the sense that it
never so quick. It
never
short.
let you daydream. It never let you go. Well, I think I gotta watch close today. Like there's always something coming up and popping up on the screen, and just like right when they get done with Matthew Patel, you bump into Lucas Lee, my man, Chris Evans, my man. Lucas Lee Ramona's second evil ex.
I liked him more in the movie than I did in the comic.
Well, he's definitely more malicious in the film, because in both he's a pro skateboarder turned movie star, and they call him a sellout.
Which actually is supposed to be, I think it was inspired by Jason Lee.
Yeah, same thing. And then Wallace is a huge fan of his, and he is the one who goes to his
that's
castle.
what I love about the comic book. He hates Wallace. I know Wallace hates him
because he thinks he's a sellout.
Yeah, and it's true. He's like, listen, I'll throw the fight for money. How much money you got on me?
Well, here's another thing. In the comics, Wallace helps Scott train to fight Lucas. Like, they watching all his movies.
500 push-ups or something.
Yeah, they're watching all his movies, and they're doing all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was pretty funny. But they shortcut all that. Wallace loves Lucas Lee. We're going to go to his, he's filming a movie not too far from here. And, we see Chris Evans simultaneously squint and has his eyebrows raised. Which, if you have a human face, it's extremely hard to do. Try to squint.
I'm doing it right now.
Try to squint while raising both your eyebrows. It's hard because you're pushing your face together.
We look like idiots. I wish you guys saw this right now.
Not only do we look like idiots, but I know that our loving listeners are trying it as well. And the idea that we're all idiots right now together. That's why I made this podcast for. You know incredibly hard, Mr. Evans. So,
also, if you from the DVD commentary, or I think there was also there's on the DVD that I bought, the Blu-ray has like a bunch of different versions of the movies where you get little fun facts in the movie.
Yeah.
And you have DVD commentary, so it's two things.
Yeah.
So you see all these little fun facts for each various scene. So that scene that did the close-up of Lucas Lee crushing the cup of coffee, that was real coffee.
Oh, wow.
That was actually real hot coffee.
Oh my gosh.
That's the steam. He really squeezed a hot cup of coffee on his hand and threw it down.
Yeah, well, I mean, this guy was former Human Torch, right?
And this was our first introduction of like badass Chris Evans, because I don't think anybody remembers the movie Cellular. I know I remember the movie Cellular.
What year was Losers?
I think 2009.
Okay.
Or 2000. One of the 2000.
Like around that.
Around the time of that, where he got Human Torch, and then he started doing the Losers, and then Scott Pilgrim. Now he's Captain America. This dude has done a lot.
Yeah, we don't see American treasure Chris Evans until next year when he gets into Captain America mode, and still, I don't think people were sold 100% then. I think Avengers and then Winter Soldier.
Well, look at him as Lucas Lee. And then look at him as the winter, as he was in the Winter Soldier with the nice blonde hair, and jacked.
I feel like there's a through line that you can make from Not Another Teen Movie to Lucas Lee, but not from those to Captain America. Like that seems like such a story, and he even carries himself differently now. But seeing him as a villain, do you think he has the chops? Do you think we could be seeing Chris Evans play a villain?
He was believable. He was a badass, and he was just funny.
Yeah, he was.
Where he's like, I feel like, in case I feel like getting blazed back in my Winnie, they do the wide shots.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm nothing without my stunt team.
When he gets out of the thing and they play the Universal theme song, when he gets out of his trailer,
and he cracks his neck to the bump.
Yeah,
that is great.
He comes out and they play the Universal theme song again. I'm just like, wow, these things, they know who they're talking to. They're talking to people who have ingested so much media that they know these theme songs. They know what a movie starting sounds like, all that kind of stuff. So when you tweak it just a little bit, people recognize it, they understand it, and they're in on the joke as well. But yeah, he's kind of a jerk in this. Like you said in the original one. In the book, he kind of gives up. He's like, I won't.
They never even fought. That was the thing.
I think he threw him.
He punched him and like threw him or whatever. He's like, oh, and he's like, hey, you're Lucas Lee. I'm Scott Pilgrim. Oh, you're Scott Pilgrim? Punch to the face. Then he throws him. He's like, hey, you want to go get coffee and talk about this? And they get coffee. He's smoking a cigarette, and he's like, listen, I'll throw the fight for you. How much money do you have?
Right.
He's like, wow, you really are a sellout.
But they both ultimately get defeated because Scott dares him to do some kind of crazy grind on a
bunch of stairs, like 600 steps with some rusty.
I think you see him actually crash in the comic, whereas this you kind of see it.
In the comic, you like his knees hit the floor and he like disappears. The drawing looks like he's in the middle of disappearing. As soon as he
impacted, he like was going away.
This all you see is the poof.
Scott go get those coins?
No, I don't think he ever got the coins. I think the only time he really grabbed coins was...
Well, he grabbed them with Matthew.
That was it. That was the only time he grabbed the coins from Matthew Patel, because when he headbutted Todd, he didn't grab the coins.
No, I don't think he grabbed them from Gideon.
He didn't grab them from the Katianagi twins. I don't even think the Kati... No, they did give up. They gave up 1,100 coins. 11,000 coins.
A lot of coins.
The only person that ended up grabbing the coins for Gideon was Steven Stills. She's like, there goes our record deal.
Yeah, he's
Do we still get paid? There goes our
record deal. Yeah, really, really good. Lucas Lee, he's the one that ultimately does the most exposition about like, oh yeah, there's a whole league. They're all coming. We're here to.
Yeah, and even in the movies, like, you really don't know about the league?
Yeah.
Oh, no problem, bro. It's all cool.
Yeah.
Let's go get a beer.
But yeah, 1 minute he's there, 1 minute he's gone, and Lucas Lee is done and dealt with, and then we get. I want to put him in a bit of a pair because
this is what I like. In the third one, he didn't get coins in the book for the third one. When he defeats Lucas Lee in the second book, he gets a skateboard made of metal from Middle Earth. I don't even want to. Yeah, it's some like Manalian skateboard. All I know is it's vibranium. It's metal from the Lord of the Rings lore.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool, and you never see it really again.
And so he's 2 X's down. He got a couple to go, and he's with Ramona. He's not with Knives. He's living on Cloud 9 until Envy calls him. His ex-girlfriend, played by Brie Larson. Natalie Envy Adams, who is the lead singer of the Clash at the Demon Head.
Which I think that's where her name Envy comes from.
Yeah, because her middle name is Victoria.
Yes.
So it
was Natalie Victoria
Adams. Envy Adams. Which I think is a pretty cool nickname.
Nat, no one calls me that anymore.
How do you feel about these comic book-esque nicknames? These Wallace Wells and Julie Powers.
The naming of these characters is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot listen to these characters and not be like, wow, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Wallace Wells, Stephen Stills. Like, I want to be a Stephen Stills.
Gideon Graves.
Wow, I just noticed, and now a lot of them are
that's
two
that
letters.
Comic book stuff, man. That's that Peter Parker,
Gideon
Miles Morales, Bruce Banner kind of stuff that's going on.
Yeah,
going on there.
Both SSGG.
Yep. But my man Clark Kent, Brandon Routh, shows up as Todd
Dylan
Ingram.
Dog. If anybody's ever seen the crappy movie Dylan Dog,
or maybe I should be calling him Dr. Ray Palmer as the Atom, because he's played two pretty distinctive superheroes, both for DC. But yeah, Brandon Routh shows up as Todd Ingram, who is currently dating Envy Adams.
Yes,
he's dating Envy Adams,
and that's where
he used to date Ramona. So both of Scott and Ramona's exes are together, and are
that's
in a
who they cheated
band.
on each other with.
Yeah, and they're in a successful band.
Which I guess that's in the comics. That's where there's more subtle things where it's like, yeah, they're definitely meant to be together because her third ex cheated on her with his biggest ex. And also, like, in the comics, they both punch a hole in the moon. He punched a hole in the moon for both. That was it. Todd punched a hole in the moon for Ramona first. And then he punched a hole in the moon for Envy. And the third book, he was cheating on Envy with their drummer. The one that...
Oh, yes.
The one with the bionic arm.
And they never really... she's in the film, and you see her in one of the shots, but you can't.
She was the one that punched. She was the one that punched knives in the comic, where the highlights get knocked out of her hair. It was actually the drummer. You just see her, you see her take the bandage off her arm, and her bionic arm just stretches.
Yeah.
And also the fight. What I loved about that is I like the fight in the movie more than I did with the fight with Todd, because their second fight in the book was helped by Crash and the Boys.
Did they well? That's also what happened with Matthew. With Matthew Patel, the Sex Bomb remember they come together and they do like some kind of like X thing.
Yeah, and that's what I like, because a lot of the words that Matt was singing in the movie was being sung between Matt and Pilgrim.
Yeah, and in this, they do in the books, they don't just follow Scott around; they follow everyone around.
There's so many like different characters that you see their own little backstories.
Exactly, and so with this, because you're only following Scott, he's basically the one that beats everybody except for well, he does. No, he beats everybody. So the thing about Todd is a vegan. And even though he was a vegan, eventually he will end up vegan. I cannot believe he said that.
It's like, you once were a vegan, now you will be gone.
And he says it in like the most unaffected, I'm reading it off my hand kind of way. And I know that it was played for laughs like that. Like he did it specifically like that. But his deadpan way of saying it, like if he thought it was cool. Because Lucas Lee is played that way, right? Lucas Lee is played very Tug Speedman, right? Played very
yes.
Who left the fridge open and all that kind of stuff, you know? Whereas Todd is literally shown to be like almost a Super Saiyan vegan.
His hair was all glowy, his eyes.
He's smashing him through walls. He's beating him at base. Literally beating him at everything. Before we finish on Todd, how did you feel about Brie Larson as Envy Adams and Envy's like, come backstage, come play with us, come open up for us, and all that other kind of stuff?
Her introduction was so, I want to say, cringy. For the simple fact was she was sexually moaning every dialogue. She's like, I wish you guys would come. It would be so...
Oh, on the phone, right?
No, yeah, on the phone. And when she sees her in the coffee shop.
Okay.
Where she's like, oh, what? No. Yes. Like, every
she is played kind of weird.
Sexually. Like, every word she was saying was so sexual that when she was just like, I wish you guys would come. Don't worry. You're already on the invite list. And I'm like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
You were in public. Mm-hmm. Like, wow.
That's funny.
But Todd's probably my favorite ex because of how far they went in the book with him.
Okay.
And how stupid he was
vegan,
really.
And the vegan police?
That's the thing is, the vegan, he ate more than what it showed in the comic. Like, they really, like, in the movie, they simplified it to gelato and chicken parm.
Yeah.
But, and this was the joke.
All of chicken parm is
But this was the joke.
vegan.
The vegan police didn't know what chicken parm was. Like, where he's like, was like, on April 29th, you knowingly ingested a plate of chicken parmesan. He's like, chicken isn't vegan? He's like, it's some sort of rat. He's like, I think it's the vegan police was like, I think it's some sort of rat.
Yeah.
And I love that gelato isn't vegan. Milk and eggs, bitch.
How do you feel about Todd punching knives? How do you feel about Todd knocking out a 17-year-old Asian schoolgirl?
I really think they should have left it with the drummer, but it made more sense that the drummer had a part in the comic than she did in the movie. And the movie was just supposed to be an Easter egg for fans. Like, you know, a lot of crazy fans are going to be like, oh my God, that's the drummer that punches knives. That's the drummer that Todd cheated on.
Yeah.
This, I just like it because it shows I'm not afraid to hit a girl. I'm a rock star.
Yeah.
Holy crap. What?
Yeah, it definitely makes you lose
He
sympathy
just
for
knocked out a 17-year-old girl. Punched
but
the highlights out of her hair.
ultimately, even though Scott is in over his own head, he's able to convince the very vegan Todd to drink half and half, and that causes Todd to get caught by the vegan police. For
Which is Punisher.
Yeah, one of them is Thomas Jane's the Punisher. So I thought that was
so many actors that played comic book characters are in this movie, and
definitely
it takes like a very like
from before and after, like some who have already played and some who will eventually.
It's like if you watch this movie now, you just start noticing, oh my God, that's Punisher, that's Superman. That's Captain Marvel. That's Captain America. What is going on?
Yeah.
Like, everybody just went to just either have previous roles or just own their respective new roles.
So the police shows up and they hit him with some kind of vegan ray.
De-veganized ray.
De-veganized ray that takes away his hair. Like, it takes away the body of his hair.
Yep.
It just starts to wilt. And he is dejected and he is unmotivated and ultimately gets headbutted by Scott, who defeats him and takes the coins.
Which is a fun fact of after Natalie leaves in the book, where Scott's finally getting his real closure in the book. Mm-hmm. She's going on like a train, and that's when he says, you know, see you around, Nat. And he's like, no one ever called me that, and like they should.
Oh, right, they do that.
What happens in the book, in the comic book, is she ends up with a relationship with Gideon.
I heard this. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. She was like a big like.
But that speaks to the overarching story of Ramona and Gideon. The idea that someone that he was close to would get trapped up the same way that someone he's currently close to got trapped up. Like they do a lot of that in the book and in the film. Like
she ends up being like a solo artist. You know.
Yeah.
So like the band, the 2/3 of the band broke up
because he's a record
producer. Yeah. Yes. Like what did they say? The indie producer of the millennia. They called him indie producer of the millennia.
Also, like, what does that even mean when you're an indie producer? Like, what is that? You know, what is the heights of indie production in comparison to like?
And has indie music been around 1,000 years that you can call him the best indie producer of the last 1,000 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I like his suits though, and I like his glasses.
I love Jason Schwartzman.
Yeah, he's pretty.
Jason Schwartzman is the man.
He's pretty funny. We move on because although there's various times in this where Scott's getting frustrated with the whole idea of fighting the evil exes, and he will try to explain this to Ramona by saying, "I don't understand why I gotta fight all your evil ex-boyfriends," and she would say exes, and you don't understand why she keeps.
That's funny because she doesn't say exes in the comic.
No,
she says evil ex-boyfriends.
Yeah.
So it's like she's being subtle with it.
Yeah, so she says exes, you know, and she keeps saying like exes and correcting him, and when he says boyfriend, and we don't really understand why until the first time we meet Mae Whitman as Roxy Richter,
the president's daughter from Independence Day. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
And the fourth evil ex, and her former college roommate from her sexy phase. That's what Scott called her, right?
Yep. And spoiler, man, I don't even know how to say this, but it's probably the most gruesome death in comic. No, you haven't.
Oh, in the book.
In the book, gruesome.
Oh, okay.
Like I want you to read it.
Okay.
Like I don't want to say it to anybody here. I want you guys to read Scott Pilgrim Gets It Together. The fight versus Roxy in Ramona's subspace highway bag.
Okay.
Dude, it's man.
Do they dive deeper into what made their relationship tick? Because I got nothing from the film.
No, yeah.
Okay.
There was a point in the comics where Scott is in the fourth book. Scott's already working. He's a dishwasher, and he's been fired and hired like 3 times at the same place.
That's pretty funny.
So he's on shift, and he walks into his place, and he sees Roxy and Ramona literally catching up over coffee and talking, he's like, "Oh my God, this is your ex," and blah, blah. It's like, "Oh, don't worry, calm down. We're just talking." Like, and you really get a lot of Roxy and Ramona's real relationship in the book. But once again, man, the way he defeated her, gruesome.
Well, Scott refuses to fight a woman, so Ramona and her. Well, first she tries to fight her. Sorry, she tries to fight him, in the street, and then
you punch me in the boob.
Yeah, and then and then she disappears, and then she goes and tries to fight him at a club, and he refuses to fight a woman, so Ramona and her do battle. Eventually, Scott's forced into the fight.
Can't hit a girl; they're soft.
Eventually, Scott's forced into the fight, right? Because Roxy's like, "Oh, this is a thing, a league game, Scott." Yeah. And so Scott's forced to fight her, and Barry defeats her, but he does because he pokes her weak spot in the back of her knee, causing her to explode into coins.
Which in the comics is how Ramona defeated Envy in their fight,
right?
Because that's what Scott said. Scott's like, the weak point's in the back of her knees. She's like, how does that help? I don't know. Whenever we were making out, it would just... and she's like, okay, stop. And she touches it.
Yeah.
It's so she doesn't explode into coins.
Yeah.
She just orgasms.
Roxy Richter, she goes out probably in the best way anyone could ever die, I'm assuming.
Dude, it was so funny. He's like, you will never be able to do this to her.
Yeah, and I was like, what? That's a kind of thing.
Or my favorite line, your BF's about to get F'd in the B.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That was pretty funny. But besides...
Every pilgrim reaches the end of its journey.
Besides that, they didn't really have much for Roxy in this, I felt like her biggest thing was that she was a girl. Like, that was her reveal.
I'll agree with that. Like, they really just made it that it's just Ramona dated a woman once.
Yeah. Which I guess in 2010, I mean in 2000 period, right? But we're far more progressive.
I feel like we're more evolved than just like, she dated a girl.
Like right now, you can jump to a conclusion that maybe if you meet somebody right now, blind date, they might have at some point somehow maybe got down with the same sex. Probably there's the possibility's higher, I feel like now, 100%
true.
Whereas at this time, this was not even a thought in his head. He met this woman.
2005 Canada or whatever.
Yeah, he met her. She bumped into him, and literally the only people who've been bumping into him are people fighting him because they dated Ramona. And so the fact that he saw her twice and still had no clue, and they even show like the diagram in his head where he goes from not getting it to getting it. Which I love because the comics, it's a chicken. It's a chicken that hatches in his brain. His brain opens up and it's a chicken. I remember seeing that it's a chick.
That is hilarious.
Ultimately, in the movie, a lot of the framing of the film has to do with the idea that the sex bomb arms are in a battle of the bands. So the next band that they're seemingly having to duel with are the
Katiyanagi
twins.
The Katiyanagi twins. Which was, I kind of like their fight in the book way more than the movie.
Yeah, Kyle and Ken Katiyanagi are Ramona's 5th and 6th evil exes. Now, that's probably where I draw the line. You know what I'm saying? That's probably where I draw the line.
She dated twins at the same time.
You gotta let me know how all that went. You know what I'm saying? You can't just have literal twins just show up and be like, oh no, that's just I went through that phase.
That's the problem with a lot of people that aren't comic book movie fans.
Yeah,
where they're like, oh, I don't want to have to read, or even books. Like, I don't want to have to read the book to understand why this is like this. Where in Scott Pilgrim versus the Universe, you get the whole introduction to who the Katiyanagi twins are. They were being used by Ramona at the same time. I think it was she couldn't tell the difference.
That makes more sense than anything else. Yeah.
And also in the Chaos Theater fight, where you see the Sex Bomb with young Neil.
Yes.
All work. That's their outfit from that 5th book at a Halloween party.
Yeah, what is it? What are they dressed as?
Day of the Dead.
Okay.
Julie was very known for throwing parties. That's why that whole Julie's party in the movie, in the book, every book she threw a party.
Yeah.
So one of the parties she threw was a Day of the Dead Halloween party, and everybody came in as Day of the Deads.
Okay.
So that's what they were dressed as, Day of the Dead.
This was probably the most visually ambitious scene, because although a lot of the other scenes were action scenes with flares of special effects, literally neither one of the combatants touched each other in this.
Scientifically, this makes no sense. How are you going to have not only two bands perform at the same time.
What they call them? Dueling amps or something like that?
Dueling amps or something like that.
Like
something.
dueling amp. Like we're just gonna play our music at the exact same time, and then you guys get to vote.
And you see how big the amps are on the Katyanagi's twin side.
Oh my god, they're
huge.
They're
huge.
Freaking huge. But you find out that these guys are DJs, and who engage Sex Bomb in a mystical amp battle during the semi-final rounds of the Battle of the Bands.
They tore the roof off.
Yeah, initially they freaking kill it. Like you said, they tore the roof off. They summon double dragons and that come out of their amps. But ultimately they defeated when Scott summons a Yeti by activating his distortion pedal. I also feel like it's this moment where Scott's the most angry. Like he's the most like
you
over
see it in
this
his
whole
face.
thing.
Yeah, you see it in his face. He this is the first time he introduces the band.
Yeah.
You don't get Kim go when you get Kim go. I think
Kim said, moms, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I don't think does Kim say 1, 2, 3 or during that point where he's like, we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff. No, it just starts with dun dun dun, and he's like, this is the start of our song. Yeah, that is one of the greatest lines ever. This is the start of our song as the song starts. Oh my god! And also, if you see, like, if you pause it, you can see both holes in the moon. When Neil's like, they tore the roof off and it shows the moon, you see two big holes in the moon that Todd punched for Ramona and Envy.
Those vegan powers, bro.
Those vegan powers, man.
But yeah, I did like Scott finally coming into his own. A lot of the times he didn't seem confident with his music, and especially this was right after he lost to Todd in the bass battle.
I felt he came into his own when the first time he went to fight Gideon, where like he wasn't.
He just wasn't doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, he was just doing it because he's like, I want this. This is me. I want to be the man. I want to succeed. I want to win. And then the second time he goes back, and it's like, now he knows, I don't want to win because I want love. I want to win because I want self-respect. I want my self-worth. Mm-hmm. And I like how he doesn't really ask questions. He just punches the crap out of the people.
Yes, this is true. Especially in the second time around.
The second time around where he punches the people.
So, the Katyyanagi twins, and they just end up getting destroyed by the Yeti.
The two fall. Yeti. Yeah, the dragons just fall right on top of them.
Yeah, and the amps and everything. Like everything just starts exploding, and there's a whole thing there. And even though there's a finals to the Battle of the Bands, my homie Scott Pilgrim realizes that Ramona's in the crowd talking to Gideon Graves, aka G-Man Graves, the guy who owns the record studio, aka the guy who's going to give out the record deal for the winner of the Battle of the Bands. So, and Ramona's ex-boyfriend, the one that she seemingly left New York for to come to Canada. Another heartbreaking scene. He goes to run after them and bumps into Knives.
That song, I don't know if you managed to hear the song that plays in the background, but it's so sad. It goes, you used to be one of the rotten ones, and I liked you for that.
Wow.
That just plays over and over and over again while she just looks at him with the hood on.
Yeah.
All you hear is, used to be one of the rotten ones, and I liked you for that, over and over. I'm like, wow, that's so creepy.
And she literally says, I just came to see you guys play. Like, he didn't even, ask anything. Like, she offered that, don't get mad, I'm literally just here as a fan. And it's like, damn, she still cares.
She's wearing, she has the hood. I found that.
She made her own Sex Bomb shirts.
Ellen Wong really made those shirts.
Oh, that's funny.
That's another fun
fact. I remember when I saw the first one, I turned and I said, I think that looks homemade.
Edgar Wright asked her to, or I think she asked if she could make her own t-shirt. And she made 2 Sex Bomb t-shirts, and the one that Edgar Wright liked was the one that was used, which is the one that she made, where it looks like it's just construction paper taped to a t-shirt.
Yeah. But she cares, man. She cares, and she's still there. So, I don't know. In that moment there, I felt like that was everything he needed to know. Ramona's literally walking out the door with her ex, and here's the girl that you try to date, open and shut. But instead, he walks past Knives to go back to Ramona.
It's like he doesn't even acknowledge her.
And that happens a lot. Before he fights Matthew, Knives jumps into his arms and kisses him, and Ramona sees them. And it creates this whole awkward thing, wait a minute, who's that random girl kissing you? And then Knives is like, who's this random girl who's looking at you funny? And instead of...
How did nobody, put 2 and 2 together for that one scene? I mean, I love the whole, I've got to go, and he just runs away. But I'm just like, hold on. This is a girl that you just spent the night with.
Yeah.
And now you invited her to your Battle of Bands. Mm-hmm. And she probably thinks, oh, he's single. He's sleeping in my bed half naked. Yeah. All of a sudden, some girl just jumps into his arm and kisses him.
Not only that, this was a relationship that he started. He started all this. I can understand if Ramona was pining for Scott, they got in a situation where they had a one night stand that actually wasn't a one night stand, and the next morning he was like, "Hey, listen, if you got a chance," but he's the one almost begging for this interaction, while Knives is on the side. While Knives is
the whole Pac-Man thing in the movie, the whole with the book, he likes her shoes or whatever.
Yeah, I like his shoes.
I'll leave you alone forever now. That's so great.
Yeah, he goes outside and he tries to talk to Ramona. Ramona is not. You can't talk to her.
And she already has. This is the third time she changed her hair.
Yeah,
she's green now.
Yeah, and she's going to. How do you feel about Scott's reaction to the idea that she could change her hair whenever? Like he kind of had like a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, I think it was in the well, yeah, he calls her like fickle or stuff in the book.
Yeah, he called her fickle. In the film, he called her fickle because I remember thinking to myself like,
did he just say fickle?
And did you say that out loud? Like if a girl,
she walked into the bathroom, yeah, he's like,
if a girl you're digging / dating shows up and she has a new haircut, you don't call her fickle to her. Like what kind of man?
Well, no, he didn't say it to her face. She walked into the bathroom. He's like, she changed her hair. Oh my god, she changed her hair. He's like, yeah, I like it. It looks nice.
You know what? I think I think it's.
He's like, she's impulsive and fickle and
I think it's thought bubbles in the comic, and then in here he confesses it to Wallace, and that's when Wallace is like, oh, you really thought I was gonna gay it up? You just made a big deal out of like hair dye and stuff like that.
And the changing of the hair for the comics it wasn't color, it was length.
Okay.
Where she lets her hair like actually grow down to by the fourth book, you see her green hair is at her shoulders.
Yeah.
And he says like, your hair is getting long, and she's like, yeah, I haven't cut it in like 2 weeks or whatever.
Yeah. But poor Knives, who got highlights punched out of her and cuts her hair and does all this stuff. Dumped. She decides that she's gonna try to play around with young Neil. She's gonna at least try to use him to get Scott jealous. But ultimately, the big bad in this, the main antagonist, the seventh evil X, is Gideon Gordon Graves, played by Jason Schwartzman. A real putz, right? a real passive aggressive jerk. Like
I love it because when you see him, when he calls Scott Pilgrim's name, the way it initially starts, he's about to yell at him.
Yeah.
And then he goes, hey, bud. He's like, Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. How's it? It's like, that's passive aggressive as hell.
Yeah, well, he when he follows him out, he thinks there's going to be a conversation right then and there. And instead, he uses his money to just make the problem go away, basically. Like, oh, you guys want to fight me? I'll just sign you guys. You guys are great. I'll sign you guys right now. And he does. And that de-arms the entire sex bomb moms except for Scott, who's like, I'll never sign. And then Neil's like, yep, I'll take
Which
this.
Which is another thing that's true to the comics because sex bombs do break up.
Yeah,
they do break up in the comics. So that's another. I like that they break up in the movie.
Yeah,
and it's their future is really unforeseen, and I guess it's on purpose. That I guess Neil is now Sex Bomb's new bassist,
right? Because
Scott's running away with Ramona in the subspace, so Sex Bomb's gonna have Neil, which I don't mind. I like young Neil.
Yeah, he's definitely earned his spot on that band, and he was a fan for long enough to know all their songs. I think at one point Scott even walks out and was like, Neil knows everything. Neil knows all my stuff. Neil knows all the words.
He gets butthurt in the comics when they call Knives their biggest fans.
He does. He's like, what about me? Yeah.
Yeah, like he just walks into the room and Steven Stills calls like Knives our biggest fan.
Yeah.
And he's like, you see him like crying and running away, and they're like, no, Neil, come back.
Yeah.
It's like, damn, that's sad. Neil seems more childlike in the comics than he does in the movie.
He barely says anything in the comics. He's always just wide-eyed and like.
What I love that they gave him more to say, because in the comics, I didn't like his I liked his introduction with Knives more in the movie than I did the comics, where she's like, what do you play? And he's like, wow, Zelda, Tetris.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big question.
Yeah.
But in the comics, he's just like, I don't play anything. I just live here.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's sad.
Kind of dry.
Yeah, that's really like depressing, dude.
But we got the leader of the evil X's, my man G-Man Graves, and after Sex Bomb accepts the Gideon's record deal. Gideon invites Scott to his venue, the Chaos Theater, where the Sex Bomb Arms are playing. Hoping to win Ramona back, Scott challenges Gideon to a fight to the death for her affection. I like that Gideon made him say it. Like, you want to fight me for her. Like, he put it out there. Like, before you say you want to fight, realize what you're saying and realize why you're doing it. And he says, yes, I want to fight you for her.
I'm more of a fan of him doing it because he loves her and Scott earning the power of love than the self-respect. I understand why doing it for self-respect is more important. But I personally like that he was doing it because he finally said the L word.
Well, it's weird. When you say that, like the idea of the self-respect versus the love, I feel like that ultimately, if that's the story that you wanted to tell, it needed to be Ramona versus Gideon. She needed to close that chapter in the book, with that self-respect.
Well, that's what they did. That's why they did it in the comics.
And so, like, you need both. We need both love and self-respect. I guess I get it that love is not going to win the day, just on the strength of love itself, and that you do need a certain.
You can't win on just love alone.
Because if someone is supposedly giving you love in a loving relationship, but still doesn't respect you, and you don't have self-respect, it can still be a very toxic environment, such as the environment that Gideon puts Ramona in, where my girlfriend audibly gasped at the image of him like petting her. He's sitting in a chair and she's basically like sitting down on her knees.
Yeah, that's taken straight from her mind. Yeah. Like that's how Scott confronts Gideon inside Ramona's mind. Yeah, and he's there with her mind
on a throne, and
he's on the throne. She has this collar on, and there's just a bunch of different Ramonas.
Yeah, and
I like that they kept the line, "Let's both be girls together," and a knee to the groin. Yeah, because that was in the book too.
Yeah,
where he's like, "You're still my girl. Let's both be girls." Knees are right in the groin.
How do you feel about the first time that my man Scott Pilgrim went toe to toe with Gideon Graves? Because ultimately, what happens is Knives shows up, and the battle breaks into two with Knives against Ramona, and then Gideon against my man Scott Pilgrim. And in the ensuing situation, in trying to explain that he's cheated, he's stabbed. He is stabbed and killed, but he gained a life in that Katianagi.
Yeah, he got the one up
in the Katianagi battle. So he comes back to life. But what do you think about that first instance? What's the password? Whatever. That kind of stuff.
That's my favorite fight of the movie. Okay. Personally, not Scott.
I was gonna ask you what your favorite fight was.
Not Scott, and my favorite fight is actually not against an ex. My favorite fight scene was when Scott comes into the Chaos Theater and all the people are just bouncing around, and he has the power of love, and he's just taking them all apart with a sword, and they're just bursting into coins, and they're all like, he's getting like 100 points from each person. I just like, because he did the choreography himself. He learned the wiring technique and all that, so it's not like it's somebody else in the far shots. That's Michael Cera working his ass off to be Scott Pilgrim.
Well, it's also Michael Cera has a very identifiable body, so I don't know if there would have been that many stunt doubles that could have.
Yeah, no, there's no way you know that's Michael Cera.
Yeah,
but I like him because it was just
there was a level of proficiency in this fight in the first time that was amazing, and I remember watching it, and even though I've seen it before, it just looks visually impressive. The idea that somebody could get stabbed and immediately turn into a bunch of coins, which
is like it's a video game.
But then those coins immediately are affected by real life gravity and fall down, like in real time.
Like they just burst in the air and then
they looked like real coins. It looked as if real.
I think they were Canadian coins. Yeah,
it looked like real people were disappearing and coins were in their place, and all that like rolling over somebody's back and slashing somebody mid-air and them becoming coins, like all of that was really, really cool.
And the first time then the song is when Launchpad McQuack is being played, it was Gideon that calls Kim to play it, and she just does it very monotonely.
Well, she's like, "We're a sex bomb, mom. We're sellouts, and we're just here to make money."
Yeah. and then the second time she does the "We are a sex bomb, 1, 2, 3, 4," and then it just goes really.
She goes, "We are a sex bomb, 1, 2, 3, 4."
Oh, we're here to watch Scott Pilgrim kick your teeth in. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, because she was hyped for Scott. She was trying to get Scott in with everything. But yeah, he ultimately gets stabbed and has to use his 1-up and re-enter the Chaos Theater after he finds out that Gideon had implanted...
Good thing he did autosave.
Yeah, right? Gideon had implanted Ramona with a mind control device, and I guess that's just an allegory for exes having an unnatural control over their...
Like he literally has a way of getting into my head.
Yeah, exes just unnaturally have a ability if you don't close that door, if you don't go out of your way. Because she just ran from Gideon, basically, She never really closed that door to the point that when he showed back up...
That was the thing is no one really, besides Knives, in the movie-wise, Knives, no one really got true closure.
That's true.
Like, Scott finally got to Scott finally got to be mean to his ex. So, you know, you kick my heart in the ass, so we're even.
Yeah.
You know, like with Ramona,
it's funny
she fought him instead of like talking about it.
When Todd does die or disappear or whatever, respawn. I remember thinking to myself, because she stands there, she puts on a face. I'm like, oh yeah, you just killed her boyfriend. Like, I get this. I understand that this was the evil X thing with Ramona, but she also
just lost her boyfriend.
He also is the boyfriend of that living woman that's right there, and you just killed him in front of her. And it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she's like, you just headbutted my boyfriend so hard he burst.
What does envy mean to this film? At all, like in comparison to the comics, there's a big.
I'd say she's a MacGuffin, really, and like a real like not like a MacGuffin that like you don't see through the whole movie, you just hear about, but like their relationship in general is a MacGuffin.
Oh, it's like a cloud that hangs over the whole film the entire time.
Like you hear about it, it's in the passing,
Same
it's in whispers.
Yeah,
like you hear the whispers and the passings of what Ramona's relationship was like, what Scott's relationship was like, but unless you read the comic, you're not really gonna get that in depth of Envy's importance.
Yeah,
because Envy's pretty important in the book.
That's what I'm thinking.
Infinite Sadness. She's the cover of the third book.
Okay,
that's her. That redhead girl with the ponytail.
Well, and she's about to. Yeah, they're about to debut that whole band and all that stuff. Where she is now, and all that stuff there. I felt like she was kind of a side note in this, but again, good. I just wonder, those who don't read the comics, I wonder what they get from Envy from there, because it seems open and shut. They meet. He beats up the new boyfriend and then he leaves with the new girlfriend.
When you know, all you know about Envy in the movie is she cheated on Scott.
Yeah,
she broke up with him on his birthday or something like that, or her birthday. It was somebody's birthday party, and Scott gets dumped. And in the book, you know that she cheated on Scott with Todd, and Todd cheated on Ramona with Envy.
And then cheats on Envy with the
bandmate, the drummer. Yeah, and that's why the fight was so much more different in the third book, because it's like Envy knows, wait, Todd's a piece of crap, and she ends up fighting the chick with the bionic arm. So Infinite Sadness, to me personally, is my favorite of all.
Isn't that fight with the arm more like that Roxy fight?
Yes. A lot of the like the Roxy fight and the Knives fight are either in different points or with different characters. Mm-hmm. Where Ramona fights Envy, it's the exact type of fight with her and Knives. Where even Envy is like, you unbelievable bitch, and she's like, believe it. That was in the movie, that was in the comic. So I like their pacing. I like where they pick and choose what scenes should go where, because when you see it as a whole movie, a lot of it makes sense. If you were to watch the movie with what a lot of the stuff that they left out in the comic, you're gonna be like, wait, looks like this is like a trilogy. Yeah, I need at least 2 more movies of this. So the whole fast paced was just great. And Envy is, I guess she's like an amalgamation of everybody's ex. You know, like what guy, especially how guys call like that one girl that really got through to them, or that one ex that they loved more than any other ex, like she was the big ex. Mm-hmm. And what else about
with Envy, did you feel like she was malicious in this film? I don't really feel like she was.
No, not at all. I felt she was like, I guess the stardom is what made her change her personality. Because in the comic, yeah, she was very nice. She was a really nice character in the third book, where you see her backstory with Scott. And then it was, the more they got famous, the more they started getting like recognized, the more she started changing. Yeah. She went from Natalie to Envy. She dyed her hair red. She kicked Scott out of the band. Like, there was a whole thing where the book, she's actually not a good person at all. But in the movie, it's like she's just there.
And she's just living her life. Like, regardless of what your opinion is on her life,
she's living exactly, 100%. She's just doing what she feels is best for her. And I like that. And I like that in the comic she dated Gideon. That's so great. That's weird. It's weird.
But in here, you know, Scott dies and he's able to come back and he does things double as fast and with more of the gumption. He just knocks out the guards. They just explode into coins. And he goes and takes on Gideon. But before he does that, he mixes up with Sex Bob and he you know, what did he tell? I can't remember what he tells Steven. I know he tells young Neil that he doesn't have to be young anymore.
He tells Steven, the new sound is great. Don't change a thing. I like it better. Neil, you have done well. From this point on, you'll be known as Neil.
Yeah, no
Kim,
more young Neil.
I'm sorry about how things ended with us. I know
I'm
I'm a piece of yeah. I'm sorry about me. I'm sorry. I'm crap.
Yeah.
And that was nice.
And then she gets into gear. They start playing the music. Scott goes back to destroying everybody. Knives comes back again to start fighting Ramona. But before they can even start,
he already knows she's gonna there.
He just splits them up and explains that he was in the wrong. And I thought that was very mature of Scott in this instance. And then the three of them take on Gideon.
And I love that Ramona. See, in the comic, Ramona hated that she felt Scott cheated on somebody for her. And that's why she said, "You're just another evil ex waiting to happen."
Ah, okay.
And like she was, she
that
felt very
weird
scorned. That's why they broke up in the book.
That line felt weird in the film, but I just chalked it up to her trying to be self-destructive of the relationship because she didn't want it to.
Yeah, no, there was a whole big fight about the whole cheating on Knives with Ramona thing, where she felt that was wrong. You know, I thought you were different. I thought you were a nice guy, but no, you're just another evil ex waiting to happen. So it makes more sense. And I do like the fight where it was like when Knives and Scott go to fight Gideon, it's like the Dance Revolution thing that they were fighting.
Yeah, it's called Ninja Revolution.
Ninja Storm or something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that. But that's what won their relationship over to me, was their ability to be a team. You understand? Like,
even though they had the history they had, they were still managed to be teammates.
They almost felt like they were even working to that, because Ramona sees that and almost gives a face like...
No, that's what she did, give that face when they were talking together, and she's like, your hair's getting shaggy and all that.
And she felt like she knew her place. Like, you know, my life's crazy, and maybe I shouldn't be jumping from guy to guy to guy, the same way that he shouldn't be jumping from girl to girl to girl. So I'm going to go find mine, and he already has his.
That's why I'm here, because I'm not supposed to be with him. I'm supposed to help him realize who he wanted to be with was under his nose the whole time. And that's why I understand the alternate ending, as much as I don't like it.
Right, because for those who are uninitiated, there is an alternate ending in which Scott Pilgrim ends up with Knives instead of ending up with Ramona.
Yeah, where she said he tries to go up to her and tell her, "Hey, you leaving?" and everything. She's like, "Yeah, I'm leaving," and all. And he doesn't. Knives doesn't.
Wait,
say,
what happened in the comic? Knives, right?
No, that like it. I think I can't remember how it ended in the comic. I think they just ran off together. That was just it.
Him and Ramona.
Him and Ramona just ran off together, because it was by the fifth one. Knives was already established that I don't want you back. You're not worth my trouble. You're not worth my time.
Okay.
She already got drunk and made out with Kim.
Yeah.
What?
No.
Oh yeah. Okay.
There's a lot going on here.
The start of the fourth book, Scott Pilgrim gets it together. They're in the summer, and they're at Julie's throwing a birthday party on like a beach house, and Knives is invited because it's already been a year. So Knives isn't 17 anymore. Now she's 18. She wants to be looked at as an adult. So they're all getting drunk in Julie's parents' beach house, and I think Scott was looking for Ramona, and he creeps by a door, and he sees Kim and Knives in a room on top of, like, cuddled next to each other.
Yeah, holding each other?
Yeah, and then this is where the line comes, "I kissed the lips that kissed you."
Ah, yes.
Because she said that to Kim.
Because Kim, yeah.
That's when she found out that she dated Kim.
Ah, so they just repurposed some of the dialogue for this.
Yeah, a lot of the dialogue was repurposed for where it should be, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's just, when you know the backstory to it, it's hilarious to think that, wow, drunk Kim and drunk Knives actually made out in book 4.
Yeah.
Like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, because Knives doesn't even drink. She can't even go out past this. What is it? The sun's got to be out.
Oh, playtime.
Oh, yeah, no, he goes.
That is, my God.
When he called them out on that, every time he called them out, man, it was just legit.
It's like, well, she can't really go out after dark, so it's not really babysitting. It's more like playtime. It's not dating. It's more playtime.
I'm going to need the bed tonight and for the rest of the week for sex.
And probably the year.
Yeah, for sex.
Oh, no, yeah, there was a whole, they lost their apartment in the book.
I heard, yeah. That's how he moves back in with his parents, right?
Yeah, they lost the apartment and all that.
Yeah, so let's end this Gideon stuff. So Gideon ends up fighting the dual team of Knives and Scott, and when he seemingly has defeated both of them and broken their weapons and have them laying on the floor, Ramona taps him on the shoulder and gets his attention, and he thinks that she's going to come in for an embrace, but she chooses to knee him in the Crocs. And and
that was just messed up. You never hit a guy there. I understand.
And then Scott just comes with because we should say that the first time when he said that he was fighting for Ramona, he was given the sword or the
power of love. Bill Hader's voice. Scattering the power of love.
He was given a sword imbued with the power of love that shatters. And then he eventually gets a sword imbued with the power of self-respect that also shatters.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny. I can't remember, but I think Gideon's little hand movements.
Yes.
It's not only reminiscent for like fight scenes, but I think it's a cheat code. Like you see, like it's very subtly where it has those little editings.
Yeah.
Where it's like letters. It's like
I just love that 8-bit sword, like that weird.
Oh, where he just pulls it out,
glowing 8-bit sword, and I liked. And I may be wrong. I've seen the imagery for this. But correct me if I'm wrong. They play homage to Gideon's comic book character because at certain points, especially with the sword, his lenses are reflective.
Yes,
and
that's
so in the comics, yes. I think I remember seeing him in the comics. You can't see in his lenses.
You cannot see his eye. It has that one little white line that's supposed to make for reflection. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he has that shirt that's like 3 G's.
Yeah.
All together. I always thought it was 666, but apparently
it's a triangle. Gideon Gordon Graves.
Yes.
Yeah. I like. Do you know how long it took me to get all the contact information for this leak? Like 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours.
No. The best line was.
That's that mundane stuff.
You made me swallow my gum.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be in my digestive tract for 7 years. He was so pissed off that he swallowed his gum.
Such the mundane things like opening up an email, reading a letter. Like you didn't read my email. You didn't get my letter. Like all those things.
Like, dude, this thing claims I have mail. Hey, dude, now I'm reading it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, that stuff was hilarious. Like, have you never used AOL? Like, what's going on with
Hey, Wallace, you know the website Amazon.ca? What's the website for that?
It's like Amazon.ca.
That's so great.
Yeah, Edgar Wright really, like, there's a lot of this that is shot for shot. A lot of the dialogue that is literally, crossing the T's and dotting the I's of the same dialogue in the comic book. And Edgar Wright went out of his way to tell the actors not to blink during takes.
Yes.
Because he wanted them to mimic the Japanese anime feel. Because, like I said, again, the original book, this is straight from Brian Lee O'Malley, is not manga but manga inspired. So there goes that. And like I said, a lot of
Canadian comics. That's just funny to say.
A lot of when you use your body to talk, I feel like that a lot of that's anime. And so, like, when Matthew Patel is like, I'm the first, and he puts his hand up in the air.
That is one of the best introductions.
But that's also very anime, right?
Yes.
Like, I am here to defeat you.
I wish you guys... Oh, my God, why can't you guys see this?
That's pretty good, right? Yeah. I'm telling you, I could have been an Evil X, bro.
Oh, my God, that was great. You guys just missed it. Look like Bo.
Yeah, look, I was doing my best Ginyu Force impression. Yeah, but, he loses. My man Gideon Graves loses. He ends up getting kicked in the head. Just as bad as getting headbutted,
that was probably that is a gruesome editing.
Yeah.
Because you see his body disappearing into coins. Everybody else, it was just the coins poofed.
Well, first his head exploded into coins.
Yeah, and then that's where you see the rest of his body just turning into little bit of coins. It was so actually gruesome. Like if this was like a rated R movie, like if this was a real an action movie where it wasn't comic book video game inspired, this would be one gory, bloody movie.
But that's the thing. This thing is so video games. All the iconography. You see health bars.
Dude, I even think everything is in side scrolling. Do you even see people? I think people side scroll.
That's funny.
Like every time the knives and Scott were hanging out, every time they would cut to a new scene, it would side scroll to a new scene.
The backgrounds that would change.
Yeah, that's weird.
You got Zelda music up the wazoo, especially
Final Fantasy music.
And the
Kongs and booms and pows whenever there's punching.
Tropes like getting a new life and getting higher scores for hitting more combos and hitting more moves. They have all the video game references while also being incredibly comic booky, which is cool because those two genres often don't come together in media, and so. But a lot of people who are into one are into the other.
They are like the same. They're like because they both deal with fantasy, but they both have that real life editing where it's like in a video game you see someone's talking and it says the person that you're talking to says press X and press Y. Like why would a video game character tell me to press X? And they're literally saying in their dialogue, "Oh, remember if you want to jump, you just got to press X."
But it's the same thing in the comic. They go like where did that happen? Or where did this come from? And he'll be like, just read the other volume.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Like, didn't we cover this in volume 2 already?
Yeah. He was like, just read the second volume and you'll understand. And I'm like, is he really pointing them to the books that are written about his life? The film ends with Ramona, Knives and Scott's having some. No,
it
not
was
even.
Nega
Scott, yes.
Who actually showed up in the comics a few times in the graphic novel to fight him.
Yeah, the negative version of Scott Pilgrim is there to fight, and the person I was watching with was like, "Oh no, like this is gonna be the biggest fight ever," and it literally just is a.
That's the best part about that. The fight was supposed to be like that.
Yeah, because like you're gonna fight yourself. I will fight myself. Like it was a big moment, a big mature moment.
He tells them like, "Nope, this is all me, girls. Don't worry about it." And they're actually outside talking to each other.
Yep.
That's weird.
And he just comes out and he's like, "Yeah, you just put bacon on the cheeseburger and everything's great." But he's just saying some random stuff. And he's like,
he's actually a good guy. We're gonna get coffee next week.
Yeah, and a lot of people have made the joke that if Nega Scott is all the opposite to Scott, then he would be a good guy, and that's why he's a good guy.
Yes, that's what it was shown in the book. In book 5, it was like Nega Scott showed up in his dreams. Like a lot of his dream, he had a lot of dream sequences where he couldn't fight. He couldn't defeat the dream. He's losing.
Yeah,
and it's his own. He's dreaming about.
He's constantly dreaming in that book.
Yeah, but it was specifically where he was dreaming. He was in a dreamland where he didn't know the cheat codes. He didn't know what to do, and he just kept losing. And you see Nega Scott. Man, this book is just ripe with so many little subtle details that's just hilarious to me.
Yeah. But he defeats Nega. No, doesn't defeat Nega Scott. They just get to a.
They get to an understanding that Scott's the real Nega Scott.
Yeah, and they just walk away. Knives and him have a sweet little moment there, and then he still chooses to run after Ramona, who walks away.
I like that she let him go in a sense, where it shows that he doesn't want to be with her, and if he was to end up with her in the alternate ending, it's not because he liked her. Mm-hmm. It's because, Ramona walked away and he's settling for the next thing. Like, I'm just going to settle. Mm-hmm. Her, the way she just says, go after her. You did all of this for her, so go. And I'm too cool for you. I like that because it showed Knives moving on. It showed Knives accepting the fact that I'm going to have a lot of boyfriends in my life. I'm going to love a lot of guys. Not everybody's going to be with me my entire life. And that's truly the point.
Yeah. And for her to reach that stuff,
just the
and
closure.
Maybe not Scott.
That's what I say. Like she had she was the only character to get real closure.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that's a real life lesson. Like that's a real something that you have to really learn, and you either learn it from good advice or you learn it at rock bottom.
Yeah,
rock bottom, and it's the idea that some people you first of all you can't force anyone to love you. No matter how many evil exes that you fight, you understand the person that chooses to love you is going to choose to love you for the kind of person that you are. That's why you should always try to put the best of yourself out there in the world, because the world can be a very beautiful place, and it should see them as the best parts of you, because you hear all the time about like windows or doors of opportunity. Life is constantly open with them, and so if you have your head down, if you're not paying attention, if you choose to just slum it through life and kind of like not give your best effort, you won't recognize when those windows are opening and closing. And I think
windows are the eyes to the house.
Exactly. And I think in this moment, Knives realizes that this man is never gonna love her the way he loves Ramona, and maybe in giving him up,
she accepted herself. She accepted that I don't need to change who I am,
and I don't gotta be that. If that's what he wants, then he can get with that, and somebody will want this.
Yes,
Knives.
And that's a perfect lesson to learn from. That's why I don't like the alternate ending, because the real ending was had so much more depth to who Knives was as a character, as opposed to everybody else.
From personal experience, from what I've seen, what would eventually happen if that alternate ending came true, the one he gets with Knives, is that Knives will get to a point where she gets to be the age that Scott was, and then realize that she wants more.
And I've seen this in real
life.
That's what
I'm saying. That's what would happen.
I have two friends that they were dating for 5 years, and this is the same exact age gap. My friend was 15 when she dated a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And she dated him until she was 21.
Yeah.
And by the time she was 21, he was almost into his 30s.
Right. And so he's done living life, and she wants to now live life.
When she got 21, she realized, I want to go out to the bar. I want to drink. I want guys to flirt with me. I want to feel pretty. And she ended a 5-year relationship with a guy that she said she was in love with, because she's now an adult and she wants to live her life. Yeah. She was the age he was when he got with her, and now she sees that I need to be older. I need to be myself. And that's why this alternate ending is beautiful, because Knives finally accepts you're not going to be good enough for everybody. Yeah. But you will be enough for the right person.
Yes.
And you don't need to cut your hair and dye your hair and wear Kim's outfits to get this approval of a guy that doesn't even have a job in this movie.
And if you have to fight this hard, and if you have to fight this much, and you have
is
to
it worth
this much,
it?
is it worth it? Yeah, I think that's another big question.
Because Scott didn't change in a sense.
No.
Like, he was always the same Scott he was going to be.
Yeah,
the lazy, everyman coming of age.
He's probably just more self-aware and self.
He probably realizes that, like, honesty is better now. That's, if anything, he probably changed for the better through honesty and not lying. But other than that, Knives was really the one that walked away with a hero's journey.
Yeah.
So that's why once again, I just love this ending.
She is the unsung hero of all this. Good work, Knives.
She truly is the unsung hero. Very underrated. Very, like, you look at Knives, and it's like, wow, I remember being that age. Wow, I remember being infatuated with somebody I can't have.
What do you think is your favorite joke?
Oh my god, I really have to pick and choose.
Yeah. And this is a different question. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have you think on these two questions while I finish up. What is your favorite joke, and then what is your favorite recurring joke? Think on those two, because ultimately, what happens, because I think it should be said, is that Ramona decides that she wants to start over, and Scott's like, well, let's start over together. Which I think is sweet. That door represents the unknown, and the idea that they would walk into the unknown together. I've said this oftentimes in my own relationship, that life is scary and life is rough and all that kind of stuff. But if we can stand together and face it, be a little bit less scary, a little bit less rough. And I do think that that's the mentality that they're having there, and that is sweet in its own sense, in its own right.
I was well said. Now, as far as my favorite joke goes, it has to be the one night stand joke.
Okay.
Like, just thinking I'm thinking of all the jokes and what tops it for me as just being one clever, yeah. 2, something that character would say,
yeah, and
3, just getting me on the floor laughing.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, can this not be a one night stand? For one thing, I didn't even get any.
Yeah.
And the reoccurring joke that I love will always be the L word. Lesbians.
I'm in lesbians with you.
What?
Yeah. And he's like, no, I really mean it.
Yeah. That's when he thinks he loves her.
Yeah.
He hasn't earned the power of love yet. He hasn't seen that, damn, this is what it feels like to be in Knives' position.
Yeah.
So he just goes out and he's like, wait, Ramona, I just gotta tell you, I'm in lesbians with you. Yeah. I really mean it.
Yeah.
So that whole lesbian thing was funny because when he finally says love, like, comedy comes in 3. So there was 2 specific points where he said, or one where Wallace is like, you got to break out the L word, lesbians. And then the second one was where he says, I'm in lesbians with you. And then finally he tells her, I'm in love with you. So I think just keeping that was just great.
Yeah.
And it's so Scott. It is so joke. Scott. If you've read these books,
that one, yeah.
And if you've read these books, you would understand that. And it's from the book where Wallace was like, it's love, Scott. I really wasn't trying to trick you. Like, that's from the book. So I love that Scott was like, L word, lesbians?
Yeah.
You are so stupid.
Yeah. I did like, bread makes you fat. That's a line that I like from that. Just his reaction to that. Like, he legitimately didn't know. And a similar joke in there is right after that, when he sings her the song and she's like, oh my god, that sounds cool. I can't wait to hear the rest of it. Or when it's finished. And he's like, finished.
Oh, okay. Man, honorable mention then was when they were on the date for the first time.
Yeah.
And she's like, did I say date? Slip of the tongue. He's like, tongue.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you just get turned on by hearing the word tongue? He's like,
I'm trying to think of my favorite recurring joke. I do think that all that vegan power stuff is out of control. I think
yes.
I guess my favorite
ovo-lacto vegetarian.
I guess my favorite reoccurring joke, but I don't know if it's a joke. I think it is though. Is the Kim's like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's one of my favorite things of this. Is like she's just gonna yell something ridiculous every time that she does this, and especially like when you saw her dejected and have to be like, we're the sex bomb moms and we're doing this for money and stuff. It was really cool then to see the whole, we're the sex bomb moms and we're here to watch Scott Pilgrim, kick your teeth in. And I thought that was really
I like that she gets upset when there was a girl drummer in Crash and the Boys, which is funny.
I did a Kim. It's Kim standing right there.
That face! Oh my god!
Yeah.
No. When she's like, how do you guys know Envy? He's like, Scott dated her, and her face just goes into that anime style. That's hilarious. But what I personally liked was that every drummer in this show and comic was all a girl.
That is true.
Kim was a girl drummer. The new drummer for Crash and the Boys was a girl drummer. Yeah. The drummer for Clash of Demon Head was a girl.
Yeah, this is true.
So the 3 main bands that you see in this movie and show and comic were all female drummers. So to see Kim get upset that they have a girl drummer, knowing there's a girl drummer in every band in this medium, to me is just it's funny. It's subtle writing that you have to like pick up on your third time, fourth time watching.
Definitely, that's that attention to detail.
You know, I had to go into huge attention to detail watching this show, like watching this movie, because I really didn't notice that every X has a number for them.
Unfortunately, this brilliant director Edgar Wright was removed from the Ant-Man film,
and you could really see what his style was.
I completely think that Luis is a Edgar Wright creation. That just seems like
that is Edgar Wright's creation.
Just pure Edgar Wright.
The whole going back with the flashback where he's like, so my friend was telling me, yo, man, did you know that there's a new this and this and that? And that just keeps cutting to new scene, new scene, new scene. That is 100% Edgar Wright's fast-paced editing. That's his style. And you see that the movie would have been a lot more funnier. Like, I think the MCU has a problem with comedy. I think the MCU has a problem with too much comedy. I think they don't want to be looked at as, okay, we're not the funny movie. We can have funny moments, but like, look at Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 opted to go straight comedy. Like, every line was funny and dialogue, and it's not really looked at as one of the best MCU films.
Yeah.
But when you have films that are like dark, like Captain America: Winter Soldier, that's considered the best standalone MCU film. So I like comedy in my superhero movies, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is hilarious. There's the weirdest segue I ever did, but
you know, let's say the doors of Marvel are closed, but let's say the doors of DC are open. The question I have for you, sir, is which DC character would be best served with an Edgar Wright movie?
Shazam.
Shazam
would have been...
That actually does work. First of all, I'm upset that you answered so quickly. I'm kind of upset because I wrote this question down and I was thinking about it for like 3 hours.
What?
But
dude, that would have been a perfect shit. That's been a perfect Edgar Wright movie.
I thought Plastic Man, right? Like,
wow, yeah.
Like, he's jokey and he's kind of like not the coolest power, and he, you know, he deals with a bunch of stuff there. He's a jokester. I try to think maybe Lobo, but I feel like Lobo is too bombastic.
I could just see a lot of Edgar Wright's styles working for Shazam's character.
Definitely, yeah, definitely.
Like you said,
especially the early the
mundane looking to be heroic
and spectacular.
He's a 10-year-old kid that got blessed with the powers of like every god in Greek mythology or whatever.
Who knows? Maybe Shazam will be the Scott Pilgrim of its time. Young kids and their
I have high hopes
for stuff
because I've been waiting for a Captain Marvel or Shazam movie forever.
If that movie's bad, someone's gonna send me a clip of me saying this, and they're gonna remember that time you said the Shazam could have been. Listen, I still have hopes. I have
hopes.
You talk about the bad relationship that Gideon is with Ramona. I'm in the same relationship with DC. I had chip on my neck. And I don't know why.
You're still dating DC?
Still dating DC, bro. But listen, because
I broke up with them because of Suicide Squad.
But the thing is, Joker's coming, you understand? And they're good to me, and they're going to keep being good to me. They're going to keep treating me right. I think maybe, you know? Sort of, kind of.
Man of Steel.
Oh, my God. I hate John Kent so much. But anyway, we can't, let's stop talking about that terrible film, and let's finish off talking about this great film. Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks that it didn't get to make its budget back and stuff. I do think that because of that, it will probably, a film like this would probably be rare, but then that makes this film more important to the
100% agree with you on that
the
one.
Overall history.
The fact that this movie didn't make enough at the box office and only now getting a cult following is the fact that this is going to be the only of its kind.
Yeah.
When is the next time you're going to actually see an entertaining, good, well thought out story with comic book and video game elements?
And you know,
blended so perfectly.
And you know what's weird? In this age, in the age of universes, they would have taken great stakes to make the first movie the first volume, so that they could make
and they could have
6 volumes.
There was so many characters that are introduced in the comic alone. Kim moves out and has her own place, and now you meet these 3 other girls. While Steven Stills is trying to get Sex Bomb to have its first album, so you meet another character. Scott gets a job, so you meet his coworkers. Right. Wallace always has different guys. Like, there is a lot of characters that's always one-off introduced throughout all 6 volumes.
And because they were able to compress it into something like this, guarantees no sequel, because there is no
story. We don't need a sequel, thank God.
Although I do think
movies that doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the few movies where it's like, we don't need a universe. We don't need a reboot. We don't need a remake. We don't need a sequel. This is perfect the way it is. And I hope
the same way that Inception became, between the wah and the buildings falling in on each other. Whenever you see buildings falling in on each other now, that's Inception. Whenever you hear that wah,
when I hear the bwong, that's the Inception bwong.
And that it's gonna be that for this. The more video game tropes, the more video game noises, the more leaning on nerd and geek culture.
You're just gonna remember Scott Pilgrim did it first.
Yeah, definitely. I would also like to take this time to congratulate Mr. Marcus C. Reed, because he was the one that was able to crack. I put up a poster.
Really, that was a really vague poster.
I thought it was vague.
That's a vague poster.
But you know, it's also one of those things like watching an M. Night Shyamalan or Nolan film where. If you've seen it and you know what the twist is, when you watch it again, the twist seems so obvious. So I'm looking at the poster, I'm like, it looks incredibly obvious to me. I hope it's not that obvious to everyone else.
No, I had to look. I had to look at your poster because I'm like, wait, what is this?
He's like, wait, what are we covering today? What are we recording?
Yeah, it's like I see like 6 people in the background, 2 in the front. It was just the way it was like drawn.
Yeah,
you chose the best Vegas poster you could have ever chose.
Yeah, and he was able to pick it up right from the jump. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. The only clue that I had given was that this had a myriad of actors who had famously played people in DC and Marvel, and it does. It literally, Captain Marvel.
No, we
Captain
just named
America,
it like 7
Human Torch,
superheroes.
The Punisher, the Shadow King. Everybody's in this. The Atom, Superman. Like, it gets out of control, and that's why we had to do this. And this is our Valentine's Day episode. We had to get a
love type comic book movie, and this is about love and romance and heartbreak.
Exactly. And so if you love stuff like this, especially like this episode of the podcast, go back and listen to all the other episodes of the Major Issues podcast. Like I said, we got 70 plus in the can. That means there's going to be enough of me to last past when I'm long gone from this earth. People going to be finding in the dirt these MP3s, and they're gonna realize
we need to make a time capsule.
That's it.
We're gonna have to get a time capsule, take like 100 of the best episodes, and just put it on a thumb drive.
100 episodes and a copy of Twilight, and that's it. That's all you need. I'm not gonna explain that reference. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And we move forward. All the episodes of Major Issues are available wherever podcasts are found. That's Podbean, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Apple Podcast app. Means if you have an Apple device, it's already pre-installed there for you. All you got to do is search for the podcast app on your iDevice and type in the Major Issues podcast into the search bar. But if you don't want to do any of those, just go to your regular old search bar, Google or Ultra Vista, to type in.
Stop.
type in the Major Issues podcast, and we'll be the first ones to pop right up.
Just don't try Ultra Vista, people. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist anymore. We'll pop right up, man. And rate and review us on iTunes. If you got a chance, it gives us a real honest opinion about how we're doing and what we should be improving on, and we're always trying to improve as podcasters. So feedback from our audience is always it's always great. And if you can give us a 5 stars, that's always great too, because then we get hooked up into the algorithm and everyone starts to see that this show in particular is one to be listened to. But if you do want to get your voice more heard, if you want to contact us directly, we are available on all social media platforms like Facebook.com/ComicBookClique, Instagram at ComicBookClique, or use the hashtag ComicBookClique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. Or you can reach us at Major Issues CBC on our Twitter machine, which is growing little by little, which I'm digging. I'm really digging the very, very, very slow
I'm glad that we're everywhere.
And existential, depressing pace in which our Twitter is growing. But it is growing, and that's all that matters. You understand? Watch pot doesn't boil you. I think that's what they say. Something like that.
Yes. Wow. I haven't heard that quote in a long time. A watched pot doesn't boil. Holy crap.
I'm just full of gems today. But yeah, my name is George Serrano, aka the Don.
I'm Dan, the comic book man.
And this has been our Scott Pilgrim versus the World in-depth recap and review. And so remember, whether or not you found your true love yet, whether or not you're patrolling high schools looking for the next best
Don't do that. Don't do that, guy. We are not promoting pedophilia, please.
Major Issues does not condone anyone going to a high school for their love life. I had to put in that disclaimer. Whether you're fickles or you're dyeing your hair all kinds of colors, or whether or not you just need that futon for a whole week of sex, remember, that we are the Clique. You are loved, and you, yes, you are worthy.